Chapter 1842. No one left. Lenny sighed inwardly. It seemed like he had to take the risk after all. He wanted to trick these people into leaving with words. But he didn't expect these three to be that easy to fool. Not all Earth-class masters were as cowardly as Yu Huashing. Lenny activated the second stage of the art of dragon mastery, and the strength of an early-stage Earth class was displayed in front of the three. Early-stage Earth class? Zhao Guang'er was stunned for a moment. Then he laughed out loud. Do you think you can beat any one of us with your meager strength? I think you'd better surrender, and I'll give you a quick death. Wait. Yu Lu was afraid that Guang'er would kill Lin Yi right away. Where would he get the qi-gathering pill? He quickly said, Lin Yi, hand over the thing you took from Yu Huashing in the tomb, and I'll let the two girls go. I only want the dog, Yu Shisan said coldly. Are you three retarded? Lin Yi suddenly grinned, and looked at the three Earth-class masters, standing not too far away. Each of them was stronger than him. But Lin Yi looked at them with disdain. Yes, disdain. We haven't even decided who's better, and you're already dividing the spoils. Is there even a need to divide? An early Earth-class junior? Zhao Guang'er laughed arrogantly. One move. Lin Yi said faintly. What? Zhao Guang'er paused. He didn't quite understand what Lin Yi was saying. Guang'er didn't hear it clearly, but Qibing and the others heard Lin Yi's words through the listening devices on them. Qibing laughed. Is this Lin Yi an idiot? One move. Does he think everyone in front of him is a mystic? He's overestimating himself. Yeah, I think he's the one who's one move. Kong Mingming added. He knew that Zhao Qibing was from the hidden house Zhao, so he tried his best to please him. After all, Donghai was the territory of the hidden Zhao family. Although the hidden Yu family was the Kong family's backer, it was too far away. If they could get the support of the hidden Zhao family, then the Kong family would be even more powerful. Only Yu Huashing's face twitched a couple of times, as he felt a chill in his heart. When he remembered that Lin Yi was the male thief, he naturally felt a sense of fear in his heart. Lin Yi didn't say anything else. As he spoke, he slowly raised his right hand above his head, and the second level of the art of dragon mastery was abruptly pushed to its limit. What do you mean? You want to surrender? Yu Lu didn't understand what Lin Yi was doing, but no matter what, Lin Yi's strength was only at the early phase of the Earth class. This was why he was confident that Lin Yi wouldn't be able to do anything. There are two hands to surrender, why are you raising one? Lin Yi didn't bother with Guang'er and Yu Lu. His eyes flashed as he raised his right hand and pushed it towards the three. In an instant, a strong wave of heat rushed towards Guang'er, Yu Lu, and Yu Shisan. The strong red air current brought with it the power to destroy the world, crashing towards the three's heads. At this moment, a trace of fear flashed across Zhao Guang'er's eyes. He shouted, Not good, run. Haha. Lin Yi let out a long laugh. It was too late for him to run now. Lin Yi didn't think that he'd actually succeeded. He'd actually succeeded. The second level of the art of dragon mastery wrapped around the fire poison qi and was released by Lin Yi. Under the guidance of the second level of the art of dragon mastery, the fire poison qi followed Lin Yi's will and formed a red mist above the heads of the three Earth-class masters. The mist was so wide that it completely covered their escape routes. By the time Zhao Guang'er realized that something was wrong, it was already too late for him to escape. He had been too confident before, and didn't put Lin Yi in his eyes at all. He was caught off guard by Lin Yi's move. He wanted to retreat, but the moment his brain gave the command to his legs, the red mist seemed to have come alive, wrapping around his body. Guang'er screamed. This was the last sound he'd ever make in his life, and in the next moment his body turned into ashes. If Zhao Guang'er was like this, then Yu Lu and Yu Shisan were naturally not much better off. Before the two of them could even react, they were already enveloped by the fire poison qi and turned into wisps of green smoke, disappearing into the wind. This move was something that Lin Yi had thought of on the spur of the moment. He'd used it with the attitude that he'd succeed or die trying, because he had no other choice. Using his normal strength to fight two Earth-class masters, and one Earth-class master in the late stage would only lead to death. Lin Yi wasn't that stupid. Using his qi to guide the fire poison qi to attack Guang'er, Yu Lu, and you sure San was something that Linny had learned from rock candy. Sky-class masters could control and release chi outside of their bodies, and use it to transmit sound. Since chi could record sound, could it also record one's own will? Therefore, Linny had set up an attack route for his chi in advance, letting it guide the fire-poison chi to attack Guanger, Yulu, and Yushir-san. First, it would turn into a red mist, and then it would wrap around the three's bodies one by one, inflicting heavy damage on them. However, Linny only wanted to inflict heavy damage on the three. As for the three of them being vaporized into ashes, Linny hadn't expected that the fire-poison chi would be so overbearing that it could turn 3 Earth-class masters into ashes in an instant. Seeing this strange phenomenon, Linny felt a deep sense of lingering fear. He was so lucky that he didn't die from chi deviation. In fact, although Zhao Guanger, Yulu, and Yushir-sen were all Earth-class experts, none of them cultivated a fire-based mental cultivation technique. If any of them cultivated a fire-based mental cultivation technique, they wouldn't have been burned to death so easily. Unfortunately, Yushir-sen was only an expert from the Yu family, and not an alchemist. What made Linny excited was that he could indeed control the route of the chi he released. In fact, Linny could vaguely feel that although he had set the route of the chi, he could still maintain a certain connection with the chi outside of his body. It was a mysterious feeling, but the battle ended in an instant. Linny didn't carefully think about it or feel it. Damn, where are these three people? Why are they all gone? Shield Bro showed his power again and vaporized them. Yushu said in surprise as she stared blankly at the red mist formed by the fire-poison chi that was slowly dissipating. Not far in front, there was no one left. Chapter 1843. She forgot Mingyao had a vague idea of what was going on, but she was stunned by the scene in front of her. In an instant, 3 masters were burned to ashes by Linny. Was this for real? In the car, Zhao Qibing, who had been bragging a moment ago, saw the 3 Earth class disappear in front of him. His voice stopped abruptly. Kong Ming, on the other hand, was stunned as well. He couldn't believe the scene in front of him. One move. Really one move. 3 Earth class, gone just like that? Kong Ming couldn't believe it. That Linny who was beaten up by Right Shirsan, and had his teeth all over his body. How did he become so strong all of a sudden? Quick! Run! Yu Huixing spat out 2 words with difficulty. He was so scared that he almost lost control of his bowels. Was this guy even human? He killed 3 Earth-class masters in one move, and one of them was an Earth-class late phase. Could it be that Linny had broken through to Sky-class, and was pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger? Yu Huixing's words woke Zhao Qibing and Kong Ming from their stupor. This car belonged to House Zhao, and the driver was Zhao Guanger. Now that there was no driver, Zhao Qibing scrambled to the driver's seat and started the car. He stepped on the gas pedal and drove away from this terrifying place. Phew! Yu Huixing felt that Linny didn't notice the car and didn't chase after them. He let out a long sigh of relief. He was lucky that he didn't go for revenge stupidly. Otherwise he wouldn't even know how he died. Yu Huixing was an Earth class, but he couldn't tell what technique Linny used. With a flip of his hand, he formed a red mist that covered the sky and turned people into ashes in an instant. It was too creepy and scary. Kuan nodded. Zhao Qibing and Kong Ming were scared out of their wits as well. 3 Earth-class masters. In their eyes, they were invincible existences, but they couldn't even take one hit from Linny. And now, Qibing finally believed Qikuan's words. Linny, this guy, would make a bunch of enemies every once in a while. And when he wanted to cause trouble, it was too troublesome. So he'd pretend to be injured or lose his strength, waiting for his enemies to come knocking on his door, and then kill them one by one. Zhao Qibing shuddered at the thought. This was too sinister. This guy was addicted to pretending to be a pig to eat the tiger. Next time, I won't fall for it. Whoever goes again is a fool, a big fool. Kong Ming cursed in his heart as well. If he'd known that Linny was this strong, he wouldn't have asked Yu Shirsan to cause trouble for Linny. Now he didn't know if the hidden house you would send any more masters over. Let's go back. Linny won, but he still had lingering fears. Even if there was a small mistake, he wouldn't be able to kill them in one hit. Of course, This result was far beyond Lin Yi's expectations. Lin Yi didn't even think about burning all three of them to ashes. From Lin Yi's perspective, it was a waste to force the fire poison out of the body. So he might as well make use of it, and use it like a qi bomb. Even if it wasn't as powerful as a qi bomb, it would still be enough to heavily injure them. As long as he did that, he'd have a chance to escape. But he didn't think that it would be so thorough, and the three of them disappeared. But what Lin Yi didn't know was that it was the fire poison from the second stage of the art of dragon mastery. Even the ice spirit fruit couldn't completely suppress it, and normal people who went crazy didn't need to force the fire poison out of their bodies at all after eating the fruit. Shield bro, where are they? Yushu blinked. They've turned to ashes. Lin Yi pointed at the fine particles on the ground that hadn't been blown away by the wind. Holy shit, Shield bro, you're too amazing. You can even use a fire attack. Yushu exclaimed. Ah, Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Only Lin Yi knew that this type of attack could only be used once. Could he go crazy again and force out so much fire poison? This time, it was a complete coincidence. Luckily, the three Earth-class masters stood together and let him hit them. Otherwise, even if Lin Yi was lucky enough to burn two of them, the third would be even harder to deal with. Grandma Sun looked at Lin Yi stunned. She rubbed her eyes and frowned. She seemed to remember something, but it wasn't clear. Grandma, let's go back, Meng Yao said as she looked around. It was evening, and there was no one else in the alleyway. She let out a sigh of relief. Lin Yi's move had been completed in an instant, or else the three Earth-class masters wouldn't have been able to escape. Oh, Grandma Sun came back to her senses after hearing Meng Yao's call. She quickly followed Meng Yao back to the yard. Yushu quickly locked the door. She was thinking about how to explain what happened before to Grandma Sun, so that Grandma Sun would keep it a secret and wouldn't tell anyone. Looking at the unharmed Lin Yi in front of her, Meng Yao felt like she was dreaming. Is it over? Is everything over? Shield bro, you're really awake? That's great. I don't have to pick up trash anymore. Yushu looked at Lin Yi and screamed excitedly. You always wake up at the critical moment and kill everyone. You're so awesome. Haha, it's not the critical moment. I actually woke up a while ago. Lin Yi said with a smile, but something wasn't right. As expected, Meng Yao's face darkened. Just now. Ugh, I didn't see you take off your clothes. Lin Yi said. Meng Yao's face darkened even more. You took off half of it, and the three guys at the door interrupted you, so you put them back on. Lin Yi had to think of a way to make up for it. Oh, I know, that's why Shield Bro was so angry and burned those three guys to death. Yushu nodded. That's right. Lin Yi nodded. Lin Yi. Meng Yao raised her fist at Lin Yi. I'm not done with you. Ugh. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He'd just woken up, and his mind wasn't working properly yet. Yushu's words had him spilling the truth out, and Lin Yi regretted it. Alright Yao Yao, you're Shield Bro's main wife anyway. With that, Yushu winked at Meng Yao before turning back to Lin Yi. Shield Bro, have you forgotten about the past? Let me remind you. Yao Yao is your main wife, and I'm your small wife. Question mark. Lin Yi looked at Yushu strangely. Chapter 1844. Chapter 1856. Invitation. We're your first and second wives, Yushu said with a serious face. I've forgotten what happened before? What did I forget? Shu, are you scared out of your wits? Lin Yi looked at Yushu, not sure what she was up to this time. Ugh. Yushu looked at Lin Yi. He didn't look like he'd lost his memory, so she asked, then, who's your girlfriend? Girlfriend? Lin Yi blinked, a flash of confusion in his eyes. He wanted to say a name, but the name seemed to be right at the tip of his tongue. Could it be that he'd just woken up, and his brain wasn't working yet? But after a moment's thought, Lin Yi thought of the name. It's Feng Xiaoxiao. Didn't she go to the Ice Palace to train? Why do you ask that all of a sudden? However, he felt that something wasn't quite right after he said that, but he couldn't quite put his finger on what exactly was wrong. Feng Xiaoxiao. Shu couldn't help but realize that Lin Yi only forgot about Tang Yun. But he knew everything else besides Tang Yun. Yushu had wanted to lie about Meng Yao being his first wife, But it didn't seem like that was going to work. Meng Yao blinked at Yushu, telling her to stop meddling. It seemed like Lin Yi had really forgotten about Tang Yun. It's nothing. Shu's always been a little paranoid, you know that. Meng Yao glared at Lin Yi. He'd have woken up a long time ago, if she wanted to deal with him in the future. Why didn't he say anything? Peeping Tom. But, as she cursed in her heart, Meng Yao had a weird feeling. She was even blaming those three for being so nosy, showing up at this time. What would have happened if they hadn't shown up? Had Lin Yi seen her? Why would he do that? Did he like her? Meng Yao couldn't help but worry at the thought. Grandma-san, thank you for taking care of me these days. Lin Yi turned around and respectfully thanked Grandma Sunday. Little miracle-working doctor, you're treating me like an outsider. My old illness has been cured by you for many years. I should be the one thanking you. Grandma-san quickly waved her hand and said, as for taking me in, it's just a coincidence that I'm grateful. This is also God's arrangement. How do you know she is Grandma-san? Have you been sober these days? Meng Yao wasn't stupid. She thought of something after listening to Lin Yi's words. Her face reddened as she glared at Lin Yi. Of course not. I could only hear your voices before. I only woke up after Yao Yao gave me the medicine. Lin Yi quickly explained. As for using his perception to see the outside world, Lin Yi hid it. If he told the truth, the miss would probably be furious. Humph. The miss snorted. She didn't believe Lin Yi's words completely, but she didn't question it either. Grandma-san, what happened before? Lin Yi looked at Grandma Sunday. He wanted to say something but stopped. After all, the things that happened before were too shocking and strange for a normal person like Grandma Sunday. Lin Yi was afraid that Grandma-san would spread the news. Just now, my eyes were playing tricks on me. I didn't see anything. Grandma-san shook her head and said, you guys are not normal people. I won't cause you any trouble. Lin Yi nodded, but he was still a little surprised at Grandma-san's calmness. Those were three masters, and they disappeared just like that. However, he was afraid that Grandma-san wouldn't understand the meaning of masters. Before school starts, we may still live here. Please forgive us for our intrusion. After school starts, we will move to Donghai. If you are interested, you can come with us to Donghai. At that time, the house will definitely be short of a housekeeper. Lin Yi felt that Grandma-san was a kind person after observing her for a while. It should be a good thing to keep such a person by his side. When they go to Donghai, Faubert wouldn't be able to help with the housework like he was doing now. These things would eventually fall to Lin Yi, and Lin Yi couldn't guarantee that he would always be at home. So having a housekeeper was the best thing. Meng Yao was a little surprised. She didn't expect Lin Yi to invite her. But she immediately understood what Lin Yi meant. She snorted and said, lazy. You said it. We're good friends now. I'm not a follower, nanny and bodyguard anymore. Lin Yi smiled. Okay, this is what you said. The living expenses of the family will fall on you. We don't have money to pay Grandma's salary anymore. Meng Yao couldn't help but laugh at herself. She was right. What right did she have to ask Lin Yi for? She was no longer the miss she used to be. You guys are too polite. If you don't mind me, I'll go with you. As for the salary, it doesn't matter. As long as you give me food to eat, it's fine. Grandma-san said cheerfully. She had no children. She was alone. She could go anywhere. Besides, she could see that the three of them weren't bad people. She had always been grateful to Lin Yi for saving her. Ha. Okay, but I'll still pay you. Lin Yi was full of confidence when he said this. Although Lin Yi couldn't use the fire poison chi from before, this move alone was enough to scare off all the hidden houses that had ulterior motives towards him. At least in the short term, Lin Yi wouldn't have any more trouble. As long as Lin Yi had a chance to breathe, he would be able to take back everything that he had lost. The only thing that Lin Yi regretted was that other than the fire poison chi, the deviation didn't bring any benefits to Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't break through either. He was still at the early phase of Earth class. Hidden House Zhao, Zhao Qibing, Kong Mingming, and Yu Huoxing sat in the meeting room. Their faces were full of fear. The three of them ran back like stray dogs. House Zhao was shocked, but they didn't dare to be careless. Zhao Qibing kept repeating the same thing. Dead, all dead. What happened? What happened? Why did you all run back? The old man of House Zhao didn't participate in the family meetings anymore. He usually let Elder Bai take care of things, but this time, he sat in the main seat himself, with Elder Bai and Guangyin on his left and right. Yu Huixing was a coward, but he was still an early phase of Earth class. His mentality wasn't something Zhao Qibing and Kong Mingming could compare to. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1845. Once bitten, twice shy, Elder Zhao earlier. That Lin Yi killed 3 Earth-class masters with one move. Yu Huixing explained what he saw to Elder Zhao. But Yu Huixing was too far away, and he couldn't see the details. He could only describe what happened according to his own understanding. What? One move? Elder Zhao's face was full of shock, as if there was something wrong with his ears. That Lin Yi, wasn't he possessed? How could he kill 3 Earth-class masters with one move? Plus, Zhao Guang'er is an Earth-class late phase. How would I know? Yu Huixing smiled bitterly. Elder Zhao, that Lin Yi is an expert at pretending to be a pig to eat the tiger. It's not a secret anymore. He used to pretend to be injured to lure his enemies in for revenge. And every time, his enemies would return with heavy losses. According to my observations, Lin Yi must have learned some kind of powerful technique, or his strength has reached the peak of the Earth-class late phase. Elder Zhao's eyes widened, feeling like his brain wasn't enough to process all of this. He looked at Zhao Qibing and Kong Mingming. You guys were nearby. Yu Huixing, is what you said true? It was an extremely rude question, but Elder Zhao was a sky class now, so Yu Huixing didn't dare voice his dissatisfaction. Grandpa, I wasn't far from there. Mr. Yu Huixing's words are all true. It really was one move, and that Lin Yi killed 3 Earth-class masters. Qibing's eyes flashed with fear at this point. Evidently, the scene had left a deep impression on him. If you don't believe me, Grandpa, the car's camera recorded everything from afar. With Qibing's confirmation, Elder Zhao knew that there were no more delusions. Lin Yi really did kill 3 Earth-class masters. Grandpa Zhao's heart was bleeding. He didn't care about the others, but Zhao Guang'er was an Earth-class late-phase master, a pillar of the Zhao family. How could he die just like that? From Elder Zhao's perspective, other than Elder Bai and Zhao Guangyin, Zhao Guang'er was one of the future sky-class masters of House Zhao. But now, if they had known that Lin Yi was this strong, why would they even bother messing with him? Grandpa, I've said it before, that Lin Yi's a wolf in sheep's clothing. But Qikuan was gloating inwardly. Lin Yi was fine, and he was showing off his prowess. House Zhao had lost a master, but it didn't matter. As long as he took control of House Zhao, with Lin Yi's support, House Zhao would still be one of the top few hidden houses. Elder Zhao looked at Qikuan, a light flashing in his eyes. Qikuan felt a chill in his heart, but he still acted like he was in the right, not backing down. After a while, Elder Zhao nodded. Qikuan's right. Out of all of us, only Qikuan has fought with Lin Yi in the Ice Palace's test. He knows what Lin Yi is capable of. If we had listened to Qikuan, we wouldn't have suffered such heavy losses. Qikuan was a bit dejected. He had been hoping to use House Zhao's power for revenge, but now it seemed that Lin Yi was already the strongest under Sky class. He killed 3 Earth-class masters with one move, one of which was an Earth-class late phase. Even an Earth-class late phase peak wouldn't be able to do that, but Lin Yi had done it. If he wasn't the strongest under Sky class, then what was he? It seemed that unless his grandpa did it himself, who else could touch Lin Yi? But although the Hidden Noble House Association only existed in name, and couldn't do anything to the Hidden Noble Houses, there were still the ancient sects above the Hidden Noble Houses. The ancient sects wouldn't allow Sky-class masters to interfere with the common world. This was the agreement between the ancient sects. Although the Hidden Noble Houses weren't the ancient sects, if the ancient sects followed the agreement, then what were the Hidden Noble Houses? It's fine, we'll learn from our mistakes. That Lin Yi likes to act weak, so let's not mess with him for now. Elder Zhao said that, but he had no other choice. If he could, he would have just killed Lin Yi. But that wasn't possible. Qibing, for this period of time, Go back to the family and train. Don't interfere with Lin Yi's matter. Elder Bai agreed. If Lin Yi killed 3 Earth-class masters with one move, then even Elder Bai, an Earth-class late-phase peak, wouldn't dare say that he could kill Lin Yi. Yes, Qibing said helplessly. Yu Huaxing, Kong Ming, we House Zhao, won't interfere with Lin Yi's business for now. Whether or not your houses continue to be enemies with Lin Yi, that's your business. Elder Zhao said decisively. All right, Elder Zhao. I'll be going back to report to the head as well. Yu Huaxing smiled bitterly. He knew that there was no hope for revenge from Lin Yi now. He killed 3 Earth-class masters with one move. Shuixing's death wasn't in vain. I'll be leaving too. Elder Zhao, farewell. Kong Ming was even more dejected. House Zhao wasn't going to interfere. And House Yu seemed to have given up as well. What right did House Kong have to go against Lin Yi? As House Zhao carefully studied Lin Yi had already brought Ming Yao and Yushu to Songshan's First People's Hospital. The worried Faubert stood up when he saw Lin Yi, excited as if he'd been injected with chicken blood. You're done? I'm done. Lin Yi nodded heavily and turned to Faubert. Thank you for worrying about me these days. Faubert paused. He understood immediately that Lin Yi was referring to Peng Zhan's bankruptcy. The fact that Faubert still stayed by Peng Zhan's side despite the risk of enemies. Lin Yi naturally was grateful for this. But Faubert didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Mr. Chu and I have been friends for more than 10 years. You're treating me like an outsider. Ah, that's true, Lin Yi nodded. He'd only known the miss for half a year. And in terms of time, Faubert was a lot longer than him. Lin Yi didn't say anything else. I'll go see Uncle Chu. Okay. Faubert quickly stepped aside and invited Lin Yi into the ICU. How is it, Lin Yi? Can you save Dad? Meng Yao knew that Lin Yi had a 90% chance of doing something, but she was still worried about her father's safety. It's not a big problem. Lin Yi looked at Peng Zhan's condition. As long as he's still breathing, he'll be fine. Chapter 1846. Span class equals, edit underscore font underscore normal. Chapter 1858. Something is definitely wrong. Span class equals, edit underscore font underscore normal. After the eldest miss heard this, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, she still laughed and said, Is there anyone who speaks like that? Then why don't you hurry and save Daddy? Span class equals, edit underscore font underscore normal. Yes. Lin Yi didn't think there was anything wrong with the missed tone of command. It was all thanks to her taking care of him all this time. Just based on this kindness alone, Lin Yi would do his best. Even if Peng Zhan was in big trouble, he would do his best. Span class equals, edit underscore font underscore normal. Sometimes, Lin Yi even felt that he had a tendency to be the underdog. Or was it because he was used to eldest Mrs. cold on the outside, but warm on the inside? Or perhaps he liked her a little? Lin Yi was shocked by this thought. Span class equals, edit underscore font underscore normal. However, this was not the time to think about these things. There were more important things to do. Span class equals, edit underscore font underscore normal. Lin Yi pulled out all the tubes and wires from Peng Zhan's body. Faubert sweating profusely. Meng Yao and Yushu, however, trusted Lin Yi without a shred of doubt. Faubert wondered if he was being too cautious because of his age. He had experienced Lin Yi's miraculousness a few times. Span class equals, edit underscore font underscore normal. Holding on to Peng Zhan's pulse, Lin Yi hesitated for a moment before activating the first stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery. Lin Yi had no idea if the second stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery could heal, or if there were any side effects. He was already very familiar with the first stage of the Art of Dragon Mastery, and Lin Yi decided not to do anything he wasn't confident in. Span class equals, edit underscore font underscore normal. The damaged parts of Peng Zhan's body were recovering rapidly under Lin Yi's universal qi, but Peng Zhan's injuries were too severe. It wasn't something that could be healed in a short amount of time. Lenny entered the jade space and used his old method of healing Pengzhan's wounds without wasting his own chi. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal Mingyao. Yushu and Faubert, on the other hand, didn't blink as they waited at the side, afraid that they'd disturb Lin. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. The night passed in the blink of an eye, and when the first glimmer of light appeared in the sky, Lenny let go of Pengzhan's pulse and sighed faintly. Alright, there's no more problem. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Pengzhan's injuries were a result of a car accident, and he didn't have any other symptoms. As long as he used his chi to heal them, there wouldn't be any other problems. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Pengzhan woke up as he spoke, looking at everyone in the room in a daze. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. What happened to me? Pengzhan didn't have any recollection of what happened before the car accident. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Mr. Chu, are you alright? Faubert was overjoyed. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Daddy, it's finally over. Mengyao was very emotional when she saw Pengzhan wake up. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Why am I in the hospital? Pengzhan didn't know what was going on, and he was even more surprised when he saw that Lenny was fine. Didn't Lenny go berserk? How did he recover? Could he have recovered? Why was he in the hospital? Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Pengzhan's words stunned everyone in the room. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Mr. Chu, you lost your memory? Faubert asked subconsciously. It was the only explanation. Why else would Pengzhan ask such a question? Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Memory loss? Why would I lose my memory? Pengzhan asked, confused. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Didn't you commit suicide and end up in the hospital? Faubert was confused. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. I committed suicide? Why would I commit suicide? Pengzhan was even more confused. I'm alive and well, my body is healthy, my daughter is beautiful, and Lil is such a good junior. And a friend like you, Li Fu. Why would I commit suicide? Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. But your company's bankrupt, Li Fu said. Had Pengzhan really lost his memory? Did he even forget about the company's bankruptcy? Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Even if I went bankrupt, I wouldn't commit suicide. Pengzhan frowned. My father went bankrupt when he was young too. It's normal for people to experience ups and downs in life. Why would I commit suicide? Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. But Faubert wanted to ask something else, but Lenny interrupted him. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Uncle Chu, you're saying you didn't commit suicide? Lin Yi's sharp senses told him that something wasn't right. He hadn't asked Pengzhan about the details of the company's bankruptcy, but according to his impression of Pengzhan wasn't the kind of person who would let a company go bankrupt, and he definitely wasn't the kind of person who would commit suicide after going bankrupt. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Pengzhan had been struggling against Guangbua, Jing Gubang, and the others back then, but now he was committing suicide? Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Of course not. Pengzhan shook his head. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Faubert and Mengyao looked at each other, surprised and doubtful. If Pengzhan didn't commit suicide, then the car accident earlier. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Lenny shrugged and looked at Mengyao and Faubert, asking them to explain, since Lenny didn't know the details. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Mengyao took out her phone and played Zhang Wen's explanation to Pengzhan. Faubert, on the other hand, took out the traffic accident certificate, stating that Pengzhan was the one who walked into the car on his own. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Yao Yao's right, I did invest willingly. Pengzhan nodded slowly, but after nodding, a trace of doubt flashed across his eyes. But why did I do that? There's no reason why would I do that. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Mr. Chu, I tried to talk you out of it, but maybe you were blinded by money, that's why. Faubert sighed. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. No. Linny frowned. Something's wrong, something's wrong. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Something's wrong? Faubert and Mingyao froze. And even Pengzhan looked at Linny in surprise. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. This video must have been spliced, and some things were cut out. Linny said, it's very detailed, but I have a friend who's a computer expert, and I've learned a thing or two from her. I can't do it, but I can tell. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. So, Zhangwen's lying? Mingyao paused and anger flashed in her eyes. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. I don't know if he's lying, but he's definitely hiding something. Linny said. Plus, Uncle Chu's attitude is completely different from before. Even if he's mad, it doesn't make sense. Plus, Uncle Chu said he didn't commit suicide, so there must be something hidden. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. That's right. Faubert listened to Lin Yi's analysis, and Pengzhan's denial of suicide after waking up made him feel that something was wrong. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Zhangwen? Leave it to me. Lin Yi said. I'll go take the company back. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. But we don't have proof. Faubert hesitated after listening to Lin Yi. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Why do we need proof? Lin Yi shrugged and smiled. I just want the company back, not proof. Span class equals edit underscore font underscore normal. Target equals underscore blank. Chapter 1847. Return of Property. Chapter 1859. Return of Property. Faubert paused and understood what Lin Yi meant. He looked at Lin Yi with respect. Of course, if he had seen the scene just now, he would have been even more shocked. Only someone like that would be able to say such domineering words to kill 3 Earth-class mid-phase masters in one move. Lin Yi left in peace. The news had probably spread already, and anyone who dared to cause trouble for Pengzhan and the miss now was either an idiot or someone who wasn't afraid of death. Of course, Lin Yi didn't expect one move to make all the hidden houses stop. It wasn't realistic. When they realized that Lin Yi was only an Earth-class early phase, they'd show their fangs again. But at least for now they didn't dare. Lin Yi only needed to buy them some time. As long as he continued to practice the second stage of the art of dragon mastery, Lin Yi was confident that his strength would increase to another level. Housen, this was Zhangwen's villa. However, and Mingyue, and Mingri, and Jianda, and Zhangwen were all sitting in the living room. Something big had happened today, and as one of the 5 little houses, the members of the Firewolves, they were naturally the first to receive the news. Lin Yi didn't lose his mind, and instead showed off his prowess, killing 3 Earth-class masters in one move. One of them was even an Earth-class late phase. This time, Housen is in danger. And Mingri said as he looked at Zhangwen. He was more active than anyone when they took over Pengzhan's assets. But he was also the first to jump out when there was trouble. Zhangwen, it's not that I want to criticize you, but making a move without understanding the situation will bring trouble to Housen. If we're talking about trouble, Big Brother sending people to kill Pengzhan, isn't that more troublesome? The assets are small, but lives are more important. Do you think Lin Yi will let this go after knowing about it? Zhangwen looked at Jianda and smiled coldly. This is Housen's problem, and we'll shoulder it together. Lin Yi has no proof even if he refuses to admit it. But if someone leaks the news, then we'll all die together. And Jianda's body shook. He hadn't fought with Lin Yi before, but he'd heard that Lin Yi killed 3 Earth-class masters with one move. That wasn't something he could compare to. So, after hearing Jiang Wen's words, Njianda's eyes flashed with worry as he looked at his father. And Mingri sighed. He wanted to use this opportunity to attack Jiang Wen. But it seemed like everyone had a part in this. Plus, Jiang Wen was highly valued by the firewolves. And even if they were to go against Lin Yi, with the firewolves' protection, Jiang Wen would be fine. After all, the firewolves had a sky class. And no matter what, they could still protect Jiang Wen's life. But it was different for the others. And Jianda was the mastermind of the car accident. If Lenny knew the truth, he'd probably look for Njianda first. Okay, we'll all keep our mouths shut. Don't talk nonsense. Do what you're supposed to do. Don't let Lenny see through us. And Mingri said, Jiang Wen is right. As long as he doesn't have proof, he can't do anything to us. Who said that we can't do anything to you without evidence? A voice came from behind the crowd, startling everyone. Before, when they were discussing, they closed the doors and windows. How could there be another person in the living room without a sound? Plus, this voice was very familiar. And Jiang Wen knew who it was immediately. A trace of fear flashed across his face, but he smiled immediately. Ha, isn't this brother Lin Yi? Uncle Chu's car accident was caused by you? Lin Yi ignored Jiang Wen and walked towards Njianda with big steps. A trace of fear flashed across Njianda's eyes. He shook his head. No, it's not me. Everyone knows that he crashed the car himself. There's the car recorder and the witness to testify. He said it was you who did it. I heard it all. Lin Yi raised his chin and pointed at Jiang Wen's direction. Don't listen to him. No, it was him who ordered it. He's the mastermind. He planned to embezzle House Chu's assets. And Jianda was a coward. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been doing the organ trading business so honestly. Jiang Wen, on the other hand, directly kidnapped people to cut their kidneys. Oh, he can't run either. Lin Yi slapped Njianda's face. Do you know? I hate people like you who don't take responsibility the most. You did it, you did it. Why are you pushing it to others? Njianda's face swelled up instantly. He was just a normal person. How could he be a match for an Earth class like Lin Yi? If Lin Yi wanted to kill him, one move would be enough, but Lin Yi didn't. Instead, he was torturing him. Lin Yi would return all the pain Pingzhan had suffered to Njianda. And so, before Njianda could say anything, Lin Yi kicked his crotch. Njianda's eyes bulged as he howled, his body curling up like a cooked lobster. Climax kick. This was the ultimate technique of Lin Yi's mistress. She'd tried it on Lin Yi's master before, but it didn't work. Lin Yi had learned it. However, this move was a bit more vicious. Lin Yi didn't usually use it, but against people like Njianda, Lin Yi only hoped to make him suffer a bit more. That way, he could make him pay for what he'd done to Pingzhan. You, what are you doing? And Mingri's eyes flashed with anger. But when he thought of Lin Yi's glorious battle record today, he didn't dare to do anything to Lin Yi. What do you mean? Trespassing? If you don't stop, I'm going to call the police. Oh, go ahead. I happened to record your conversation just now. Lin Yi said faintly, but his hands didn't stop for a second. He threw another heavy punch, knocking Njianda to the ground. And Mingri didn't expect Lin Yi to record. He was in a dilemma. Calling the police was just to scare Lin Yi. But the things Lin Yi had in his hands were disadvantageous to Housen. If he called the police, Housen would be in trouble. If you let him go, I'll return all of Pingzhan Industries' properties to you. And Mingyue sighed in her heart. The situation was hopeless. Housen's efforts were in vain. It wasn't that Mingyue felt sorry for Njianda. The problem was that after Lin Yi dealt with Njianda, he'd definitely turn around and deal with other people. Instead of letting Lin Yi do it, why not take the initiative to express goodwill? We'll settle the properties later. Lin Yi's foot landed on Njianda's spine, making a crisp sound. Even if Njianda didn't die from this stomp, he'd be crippled. Ouch! Njianda cried in pain. Chapter 1848. Overbearing Lin Yi, you know the pain now? But it's still early. Lin Yi said calmly. Uncle Chu, your spine is broken, your internal organs are bleeding, and you have more than 20 broken bones. Your brain is severely injured, and there are many blood clots. I will help you create these injuries. Lin Yi, don't go overboard. And Mingri roared in grief and indignation. Is it too much? Why didn't he think it was too much when he asked someone to hit Uncle Chu? As Lin Yi spoke, he began to create injuries on Njianda's body. These injuries could only be caused by Lin Yi. Otherwise, even if Njianda was saved, he would be in a vegetative state. Zhang Wen's face twitched at the bloody scene in front of him. At first, he thought that he was ruthless enough, but now that he saw Lin Yi stepping on people expressionlessly, Zhang Wen realized that Lin Yi was the real demon. Of course, that was under the premise that he was provoked. Otherwise, the guy seemed harmless. All of Pingzhan's businesses plus 1 billion. Zhang Wen stated his conditions. He knew that he wouldn't be able to escape from Lin Yi's grasp. If even 3 Earth-rank experts couldn't escape, then what did he have to do? And so, Zhang Wen gave him the condition to save his life. Is 1 billion a lot? Lin Yi turned to Zhang Wen, leaving the lifeless Njianda behind. I wasn't involved in the accident with Uncle Chu. I even gave Yao Yao 100,000 after the accident to help her with her medical expenses. Zhang Wen said, add another 2 billion to the offer. Alright, give it to me. Lin Yi nodded expressionlessly, and Mingyue sighed and went upstairs. All the documents were in the safe, but he didn't dare run. If he did, then Zhang Wen, and Mingri, and Njianda wouldn't be able to walk out of this room alive. Although Lin Yi looked very amiable on the outside, he had made Njianda look half human and half ghost just now. It was clear that the rumor of him killing 3 Earth-class experts with one move today was true, and Mingyue took out the authorization documents and the share certificate, signed them one by one, and handed them to Lin Yi. He then made a phone call and transferred 2 billion to Lin Yi's account. Zhang Wen was rich, but giving away 2 billion was a huge blow to Housen. The money Pingzhan had borrowed from them was completely fictitious and didn't exist at all. As a result, Housen didn't get anything out of this at all, instead losing 2 billion. We've given you everything, can you let us go now? Zhang Wen asked. The item was mine to begin with. Did I say I would let you go? Lin Yi asked calmly. You. Zhang Wen's face reddened. He was furious at Lin Yi's words. Lin Yi wanted to say something, but he frowned. At this moment, Lin Yi felt a strong aura approaching the villa. Earth-class late-phase peak. It was an enemy, not a friend. Lin Yi didn't even need to think to know that a master of this level was probably up to no good. The next moment, a man in black appeared in the living room of Housen. He glanced at everyone present, and didn't pay much attention to Njianda, who was lying on the ground like a dead dog. His eyes stopped on Lin Yi. You are Lin Yi? The man in black looked at Lin Yi and asked. You are. Lin Yi took a deep breath. He didn't expect to meet such a master here. You don't need to know my name. You just need to know that I'm here on orders from the Fire Wolves gang to protect Zhang Wen and his family. That's enough. The man in black didn't hide his strength at all. Earth-class late-phase peak was completely revealed. Ha! Lin Yi was shocked, but he smiled faintly. Lin Yi didn't use the art of dragon mastery. He didn't have any aura on him. Of course, Lin Yi did this on purpose. If he revealed his Earth-class early-phase strength now, the man would be even more fearless. I know you're strong. You can kill 3 Earth-class masters in one move. One of them was even late-phase. The man in black looked at Lin Yi and smiled. He wasn't sure of Lin Yi's bottom line. However, I don't think you've reached Sky Class yet. Your strength is at most the same as mine. It'll be hard for you to stop them in front of me. Then what do you think? Lin Yi asked calmly. Lin Yi knew that the reason why an Earth-class late-phase peak could speak to him in such a polite tone was because of the effect of him killing 3 Earth-class masters in one move. But if he showed any fear now, then what awaited him would be a storm of attacks. You've heard of the Fire Wolves gang, right? The man in black asked. If you leave, then we'll be fine. If you insist on stopping Zhang Wen, you might be able to win against me by a stroke of luck. But what awaits you is the Fire Wolves gang's revenge. Make him break his own legs and I'll leave. Lin Yi pointed at Zhang Wen, and said in an unquestionable tone. The man in black pondered and looked at Lin Yi. To be honest, the news that the Fire Wolves gang received couldn't be fake. Lin Yi killed 3 Earth-class masters in one move. So, the man in black couldn't be sure if he was a match for Lin Yi. If Lin Yi's skills were really that strong, then even if the man managed to win 1 or 2 moves, he'd pay a heavy price. So, after some hesitation, the man in black didn't say anything. He waved his hand and Jiang Wen groaned in pain, kneeling on the ground. With Lin Yi's eyesight, he could tell that the man in black only broke Jiang Wen's leg. It was a small injury, but Lin Yi didn't dwell on it. Being able to make an Earth-class late-phase peak surrender was already a great achievement. Okay, goodbye. Lin Yi cupped his fist and walked out of the villa. From the beginning to the end, Lin Yi didn't use qi. He walked out of the room like a normal person. Looking at Lin Yi's back, the man in black didn't stop him. His mission this time was to protect Jiang Wen's life. He'd already done it. Naturally, he wouldn't cause any more trouble. He really couldn't see through Lin Yi's strength. There was no need to make him an enemy. The man in black didn't need to worry about Lin Yi and Jiang Wen. Pho! Lin Yi's aura made in Mingyue and in Mingri sweat. When Lin Yi left, they fell to the ground. Quick! Send Jianda to the hospital. And Mingri suddenly remembered his son's safety and shouted. Chapter 1849. Lucky escaped. The man in black walked quickly to Njianda's side and looked at his wounds. He shook his head. With this kind of injury, even if he recovers, he'll still be in a vegetative state. Unless he has the meridian opening pill and recovery pill from the Sky Elixir School, he won't be able to survive. After Mingri heard about the Sky Elixir sect, he became listless. What kind of existence was the Sky Elixir sect? Naturally, he knew that even the leader of the Fire Wolf gang was on the same level as them. Such a precious pill. If it was used on Jiang Wen, it might be possible. But if it was used on Njianda, it was absolutely impossible. Although Jiang Wen's leg was in pain, he could still endure it. He looked at Njianda, who was lying on the ground, and a strange figure flashed in his eyes. According to the professor, his senior brother is an expert in medicine, even better than the professor. Why don't we ask the professor's senior brother to help? Maybe he can save Big Brother's life? Okay, then I'll have to trouble you, nephew Jiang Wen. And Mingri said quickly. He knew how hard Lin Yi was, and Lin Yi was an expert in medicine. If he did it himself, Njianda wouldn't be able to live. But since there was a ray of hope, he had to grab it. Please bring my big brother back to the Firewolves. As for asking the professor's senior brother to help, I'll talk to him, Jiang Wen said to the man in black. Okay. The man in black wasn't Jiang Wen's follower, but he wouldn't reject a request like this. Even the leader wanted him to protect this person, so he must be someone the leader valued greatly. Maybe this person would be even more successful than him in the future. One had to know that in the Fire Wolf gang, it wasn't completely determined by strength. There were also strategists and doctors who did scientific research. These people's positions were all very high. The Firewolves gang was a gang. And although they were as strong as the ancient sects, they were still a gang. Their structure was different from the ancient sections. This medicine, Mr. Jiang Wen, please take it. It's good for your broken leg. The man in black was one of the guards of the leader. So naturally, he had many kinds of medicine with him. One of them was to heal a broken leg. Thanks a lot. Jiang Wen took the medicine and swallowed it. In an instant, a cooling sensation spread through his entire body. His legs weren't as painful as before, and Jiang Wen's furrowed brows relaxed. Looking at Jiang Wen's face, Mingri was extremely envious. He looked at his son and sighed in his heart. Hopefully the professor's senior brother had a way. Lin Yi walked out of Jiang Wen's villa for a kilometer, before letting out a sigh of relief, when he saw that there was no one chasing him. He felt lucky. Today at the Yin family's villa, Lin Yi was purely relying on the power. Relying on the power of killing 3 Earth-ranked masters today The black-clothed man did not dare to act rashly. Otherwise, perhaps Lin Yi would have been left there today. Revenge was taken, Peng Zhan's assets were taken back, and he even got an extra 2 billion. This was a very fruitful result, and Lin Yi was very satisfied. As for Jiang Wen's life, he didn't mind taking it for now. With the firewolves behind him, Lin Yi couldn't mess with them now. This was also the reason why Lin Yi didn't kill Jiang Wen every time he fought with him. But even so, Jiang Wen didn't gain any advantage. Not only did he lose a kidney, but he also gave Lin Yi a lot of money. This kind of money tree, it would be a waste for Lin Yi to kill him. But as for Njianda, Lin Yi didn't have anything to worry about. He could see that the firewolves didn't value him much at all. Although he killed 3 Earth-class masters in one hit today, Lin Yi didn't let the victory get to his head. He knew his own strength, and it was already very difficult for him to fight against a hidden house, not to mention a huge monster like the firewolves. Of the 3 Earth-class masters that appeared at the door today, Lin Yi knew one of them, and heard of the other one. But he didn't know who the strongest one was. Of course, now that he had turned into ashes, Lin Yi couldn't ask anymore. Yu Lu, Ming Yao and Yushu mentioned before, was the one who followed them that day. As for Right 13, Lin Yi had fought him before. And the only one Lin Yi didn't know was Zhao Guanger. Hidden House Yu and House Kong. Lin Yi sighed. All this while, Lin Yi didn't want to face the Hidden House Yu. He didn't want to face them head-on. Part of it was because of Yu Bing, but more of it, Lin Yi knew very well. It was because of that girl. But now, he destroyed the common House Yu, killed Yu Lu, and this grudge was formed. Although it wasn't an irreconcilable grudge, if Lin Yi couldn't find a way to resolve this grudge, then this grudge wouldn't be let go easily. As for House Kong, it was time for them to retaliate. The news of Lin Yi killing 3 Earth-class spread like wildfire to every household in the city. Elder Lu Jinhu of the Lu family naturally beamed with joy. Lu Jinghan, on the other hand, looked at her embarrassed father and smiled without saying a word. Lu Tianyi, on the other hand, let out a long breath. Although he had his father's support, House Lu's entire fortune was placed on Lin Yi. This was too risky. Old Wu Gonggao and Old Sun, on the other hand, slapped their thighs in regret. If they'd known that Lin Yi liked to play dumb like this, they wouldn't have wavered this time. During the last meeting of the noble houses, even Lin Yi's lackeys, Chen Yutian and Wu Qintian, had learned to play the trick. Why didn't they believe that Lin Yi would play the same trick this time? But while help in a time of need was precious, adding flowers to a brocade was inappropriate. Gonggao and Elder Sun wanted to salvage the situation, but what could they do now? Once Lin Yi woke up, they wouldn't be able to help him. Gonggao and Elder Sun could only call Wu Qintian and Sun Jingyi, telling them to try their best to build a good relationship with Lin Yi. Qintian and Sun Jingyi, on the other hand, felt helpless. Although they despised their old man's actions, they would still build a good relationship with Lin Yi even if the old man didn't say anything. Fatty Lai, Kong Xiaobo, Sun Jingyi, Wu Qintian, Chen Yutian Lingshan, and even Guan Xuemin all came to Peng Zhan's ward. They didn't know where Lin Yi was, but from their point of view, Lin Yi would come to the ward the moment he woke up. Kong Xiaobo also went on a holiday with Fun during the summer. He just came back and found out that something big happened at home. Chapter 1850. Chapter 1862. Sorrow. But Kong Xiaobo was just a vice president of the company. Even the general manager couldn't do anything about it. What could he do? His family wasn't rich either. A tea house was enough to keep his family afloat, but it was hard to come up with funds that could turn the situation around. But Kong Xiaobo still said that if Peng Zhan needed money, he could have his family sell the tea house first. Faubert had already received Ming Yao's remittance, so at least the medical fees weren't a problem anymore. In the ward, everyone saw Ming Yao and Yushu. Lin Yi wasn't there, but Peng Zhan was awake, evidently having received Lin Yi's help. Only Lin Yi could heal a dying person so quickly. Ming Yao and Yushu, on the other hand, had a grudge with Lingshan. But Lingshan had risked her life to stop Yulu, and Yushu and Mingyao remembered that. They knew that she did it for Lin Yi's sake. But no matter what, the three of them didn't fight each other like they did before. As for getting along well with each other, that was impossible. At most, they could just pretend that Lingshan didn't exist. Mr. Chu, Mr. Li, I'm truly ashamed that I couldn't get my son to help you with your medical fees. Xuemin was here to apologize as well. Elder Guan, don't say that. Faubert knew the truth of the matter, and he knew that Xiaoxiang and Xuemin were at odds with each other because of Lin Yi's medicine company. Now that the company was bankrupt, how could Xiaoxiang be nice to the people around Lin Yi? Yeah, Elder Guan, it's all my fault. If I didn't do that, we wouldn't be in this situation today, Fatty Lai said with a bitter smile. I can't blame anyone. I can only blame myself for going crazy and wanting to invest in futures, Peng Zhan said with a wave of his hand. I, on the other hand, am flattered to have so many friends helping me think of a way. But I know that it's all because of Yi, so I have to thank them. Peng Zhan's words were sincere. He'd heard Faubert and Mengyao's stories about the tough times they'd gone through, and he'd learned that there were no friends in the business world. These friends were all Lin Yi's friends. Even Xie Guangbua, who sent the money, did so because of Lin Yi. This filled Peng Zhan with a myriad of emotions and gratification at the same time. He had come to Songshan alone, and in just half a year, he'd already built up such a strong network of friends. This was something Peng Zhan could only dream of. However, after experiencing this huge change, he had also changed his mentality. Starting a new business was a must, but at the same time, he wanted to make friends that would take care of him. He didn't want to waste his time on work. In a daze, Peng Zhan seemed to have returned to his younger days, back to the days when he and Wan Er were hiding from the Dark Palace. The friend he'd met back then was a true friend. For him, he'd gone through mountains of blades and seas of fire, facing the entire Dark Palace, forcefully forcing them to give up on killing him and Yao Yao. Otherwise, the Dark Palace wouldn't have let Peng Zhan and Ming Yao go so easily. But the Dark Palace had compromised. But 10 years had passed, and where was that friend now? Sometimes, when he thought of the past, Peng Zhan would blame himself for being too young back then. There were many things he didn't ask clearly. His father, on the other hand, got along well with him, but whenever Peng Zhan asked about his friend's whereabouts, his father would be very secretive. You're too kind, Mr. Chu, Fatty Lai said with a smile. You're an elder, we don't deserve your thanks. But now that boss has woken up, it's not too far away for us to make a comeback. Yeah, it's all in the past. Peng Zhan sighed. We've lost a lot, but we can start over again. Although the words sounded very encouraging and shocking, Fatty Lai and Peng Zhan knew how hard it was to start over again. Fatty Lai was fine. As long as he had Lin Yi's support, the medicine company would definitely rise again. But Peng Zhan was a businessman. How hard would it be to start over again? Right, why isn't sis-in-law Tang Yun here? Kong Xiaobo realized that an important person was missing in the room. Tang Yun. Ming Yao and Yushu were both here, but Tang Yun was missing. It didn't make sense. In this period of time, other than Kong Xiaobo, everyone knew where Tang Yun was, so they avoided the topic. But Kong Xiaobo had just returned, so naturally, he didn't know about this. Meng Yao's heart ached when she thought of Tang Yun, and she slowly told them about Tang Yun. Kong Xiaobo couldn't help but feel sad after listening to her. He couldn't see her anymore? He couldn't see her anymore? The others already knew about the situation, but after hearing Ming Yao's story, they still felt sad and disappointed. I heard that Boss Lin Yi killed 3 Earth-class masters with one move, and one of them was even a late-stage Earth-class. How powerful was that? Yao Yao Shu, you guys were there, right? Can you tell me what happened? Yutian saw that everyone was sad, and he gave Yushu a look. Although Lin Yi wasn't here, he could come back anytime, so he changed the topic. Yeah, Yao Yao sis and I were there, and we saw it. Yushu immediately understood and started narrating. The situation was like this. Yao Yao sis and I had just returned home. Just when Yao Yao sis and I didn't know what to do, and those 3 people wanted to kill us in General Weiwu. Shield Bro was like a god descending from the heavens. And he stood in front of us and said one word to the 3 Earth class masters. One move. Yushu's vivid description made everyone feel like they were there, especially when Linny said the word one move. Their blood boiled. What kind of confidence did he have to be able to face 3 Earth-ranked masters with such arrogance? Plus, Linny wasn't bragging, he really did it, killing 3 Earth-class masters with one move. This was a legend to the same-level masters. Even a late-stage peak Earth-class master couldn't say that he could kill 3 early-stage Earth-class masters with one move. After all, although the difference in strength was important, it wasn't as important as before. In a battle between Earth-class masters, the key to victory was martial arts. Chapter 1851. Chapter 1863. The bitterness of Faubert. If an Earth-class early-phase master trained in a powerful martial art technique, he or she might be able to defeat an Earth-class early-phase master who trained in a normal martial art technique. He or she might even be able to defeat an Earth-class mid-phase master who hadn't trained in any martial art techniques. Shoo, it was just a split second. How could you describe it in such detail? Linny smiled as he walked into the ward. He was surprised when he heard Shu's description. He didn't think much of it at the time, but after listening to Shu's description, Linny finally understood how powerful the fire poison chi was. At the same time, Linny sighed. This fire poison chi could only be used once. It would be perfect if it could be used multiple times. But Linny knew that it was just a fantasy. It was too heavy a price to pay for going berserk. Boss! Yutian Shintian, Fatty Lai and Kong Xiaobo stood up at the same time. Although they knew that Lin Yi was safe, they were relieved when they saw Lin Yi. Haha, you're all here. Lin Yi nodded at them. Boss, my grandpa. He didn't bring the money. Shintian looked at Lin Yi apologetically and said awkwardly. My family too. My grandpa, you know. Sun Jingyi was also embarrassed. Boss. Something like this happened at home. And I'm still playing outside with fun. Really? Kong Xiaobo's face was red. It's nothing. You guys are you. And your home is your home. As for Kong Xiaobo, it's summer break. It's normal for him to go out and play. Didn't I leave too? Lin Yi waved his hand. As for Chen Tian and Sun Jingyi, Lin Yi couldn't make House Wu and House Sun be friends with him like they were. So Lin Yi didn't blame them at all. As for Kong Xiaobo, Lin Yi didn't have any complaints. Didn't he brought Ming Yao and Yushu out to play as well? Lin Yi was confused at the thought. He remembered that there were more than 3 people who went to West Star Village. But how could he remember 3 people? Yes, there was General Weiwu and Skybolt Pig. But something wasn't right. Lin Yi shook his head. He had just woken up from the jade space, and his thoughts were a bit messed up. Faubert only noticed Sun Jingyi now. Of course, he saw Sun Jingyi before, but he didn't look so closely. Seeing Sun Jingyi speak, he couldn't help but pay more attention to Sun Jingyi. She looked familiar, and he couldn't help but think of his wife from back then. He felt sad. Sun Jingyi gave Faubert a natural sense of closeness. This was his wife's descendant. Faubert's eyes were a bit wet. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't reveal his identity, he would have wanted to reunite with Sun Jingyi. He was her uncle. It was said that nieces were like aunts. Looking at Sun Jingyi, Faubert seemed to see his wife from back then. He resisted the urge, turned his head, and didn't look at Sun Jingyi anymore. He sighed in his heart. Maybe one day, he could take his revenge. Master, wife, daughter, all of them disappeared. Even the sex treasures were all taken by those people. If it was before, the thought of revenge wouldn't be so strong. But after seeing Sun Jingyi today, thinking of his missing wife, and witnessing Lin Yi's power of killing 3 Earth rankers in one move, Faubert felt his blood boiling. Lin Yi was in the early phase of Earth ranker, and he could already kill Earth rankers. What if Lin Yi was a Heaven ranker? Would he be able to kill a few Heaven rankers in one move? Although it was a bit shocking, Faubert was confident. When Lin Yi was in Mystic ranker, he was the number 1 under Earth ranker. He had just reached Earth ranker, And he already had such a battle record. Heaven rankers must be even more powerful. As long as Lin Yi was willing to help, revenge was not a dream at all. Thank you. Peng Zhan saw that Lin Yi went out, and he knew that he was going to seek justice for him. But seeing that Lin Yi came back so soon, he thought that Lin Yi didn't find any traces of the Yin family. He said, although this incident might have been planned by the Yin family, we don't have any evidence, and we can't find them. Forget it, we'll learn from our mistakes. Let's start from the beginning. There's no need for evidence. The car accident was done by Jiang Wen's brother, and Mingri's son and Jianda. I've already stomped him to death. Lin Yi smiled and said innocently, Jiang Wen used the shares and property rights of these industries, plus 2 billion in cash to exchange for his life. But there was an Earth-class late-phase peak at the scene, so I only made him break his own legs. That's too easy for him. SSSSS. Everyone present took in a cold breath after hearing Lin Yi's words. An Earth-class late-phase peak at the scene? And Lin Yi was able to stomp Jianda to death, make Jiang Wen break his own legs, and hand over the shares and property rights of these industries, plus 2 billion in cash. This was unbelievable. Of course, no one thought that Lin Yi was joking. After all, Lin Yi had killed 3 Earth-class masters in one hit. Making an Earth-class late-phase peak back off wasn't something too difficult. Uncle Chu, the shares and property rights are yours. I'll return them to you. Lin Yi said, a little embarrassed. But I'm afraid I can't give you the 2 billion in cash. My medicine company is also in danger. Peng Zhan froze. He didn't expect Lin Yi to say that. Being able to take back the shares and property rights was already out of his expectations. Even if Lin Yi didn't return them to him, and took them for himself, Peng Zhan wouldn't say a word. After all, it was Lin Yi who took them back with his own strength. It belonged to Lin Yi. Lin Yi, on the other hand, was giving it back to him, saying that he was sorry. Peng Zhan was a little surprised. What are you talking about? You're the one who took these shares back. They're yours in the first place. You don't have to give them to me, let alone the 2 billion. Fatty Lai, who had been depressed, suddenly straightened his back when he heard that Lin Yi had brought back 2 billion. A smile blossomed on his face. Before, he was still worried about the problem of capital. Even if Lin Yi had the prescriptions, it wouldn't be able to turn the situation around in an instant. After all, the factory was already in debt. A few prescriptions wouldn't solve any problems. The reason why House Kong was able to rise so quickly was because of House Yu's support. With House Yu's connections, it was a piece of cake for them to help House Kong acquire some small medicine companies. Chapter 1852. How to deal with it. Chapter 1864. How to deal with it. The initial funds and prescriptions were all provided by House Yu, and with the help of House Kong, they were able to rise again. But Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company was different. Without money, all the prescriptions were useless. His brother had drawn a line with him a long time ago, and Fatty Lai wouldn't borrow money from him. Uncle Chu, these things belong to you in the first place. I have no use for them. Besides, we don't have to be so clear with each other, do we? Lin Yi smiled. When I was going crazy, it was all thanks to Yao Yao's care. She helped me brew medicine every day, or else I wouldn't have woken up so quickly. You're right. I'll take the shares and property for now, but they'll belong to you and Yao Yao sooner or later, Peng Zhan said. Lin Yi pretended not to notice, but the miss blushed. She sneaked a glance at Lin Yi, and let out a sigh of relief when she realized that he didn't notice anything. Uncle Chu, let's go back. The villa is back in our hands now, Lin Yi said. I'm a little tired, I want to go back and rest. In fact, Lin Yi was in a hurry to continue practicing the second stage of the art of dragon mastery. The enemies were too strong, and Lin Yi didn't have any new trump cards to use against stronger enemies. That was why he was in such a hurry to practice. All right, I'll leave the hospital now. Peng Zhan nodded. Wu Qintian, come with me. The others can go back and rest. Lin Yi said to Yutian Lingshan and Sun Jingyi. Fatty Lai, accompany me later. Tell me about the medical company, and we'll see how we can defeat Dr. Kong. Okay, Chen Tian and Fatty Lai said at the same time. Although the medical fees couldn't be reduced due to Guan Xiaoxiang's interference, Xu Amin's face was still quite useful in other aspects. Peng Zhan's request to leave the hospital didn't meet with any questions or obstructions at all. The procedures were completed without a hitch. The group went downstairs, and Lin Yi realized that there was no car. He slapped his forehead. Zhang Wen, that bitch, I forgot to ask him for a car. At that time, Lin Yi wanted to leave the villa as soon as possible, so that the black-clothed man wouldn't notice anything amiss. He forgot to drive the car back. Haha, it's fine, it's just a car. Peng Zhan, on the other hand, didn't mind. This was the best outcome he could have hoped for. He'd gotten the property and the shares, and the other stuff was secondary. Ling Shan and Yutian both had cars, but it was their own. Otherwise, they would have sold their own cars to support Peng Zhan. As for Xiaobo and Fatty Lai's company car, it was towed away by the bank a long time ago. We'll send everyone back. Yutian pointed at Ling Shan and his car. All right. Lin Yi nodded and got in the car with the others. On the way, Fatty Lai told Lin Yi about the company's bankruptcy, and he apologized to Lin Yi sincerely. Dr. Kang's medical company couldn't be blamed for this. Business competition was a normal thing. Miracle Dr. Kang's medical company went bankrupt because they expanded their factories too quickly. Once the capital chain was broken, it would be a disaster. Dr. Kang's medical company made so many products all at once? Lin Yi was a little surprised. He didn't think that the Miracle Dr. Kong medical company would be able to come up with so many miraculous products in just a month's time after he went back to Star West Village and went into a frenzy for half a month. Lin Yi was very surprised. However, he wasn't too surprised. From the appearance of Right 13, it could be seen that House Kong had other forces behind them, so it wasn't strange that House Kong could rise so quickly. Indeed, I'm surprised as well. Fatty Lai nodded. And the most important thing is that the prices are scarily cheap. We don't have enough products, so we can't do that kind of comprehensive promotion. Give me a copy of each of their products. I'll go back and do some research, Lin Yi sighed. Officer Song, please find a pharmacy and park the car. I'll go buy some products, Fatty Lai said to Lin Yi. Basically, every pharmacy has their products. All right, but since we're friends with Lin Yi, you can call me Ling Shan. You're treating me like an outsider, Ling Shan said. Haha, all right. Fatty Lai didn't reject it. Since they were all people around Lin Yi, it was better to be more familiar with each other. Ling Shan found a pharmacy and parked the car. Fatty Lai got off the car and went to buy some stuff. Not long after, he came back with a bag and handed it to Lin Yi. Lin Yi flipped through it casually and found a lot of the same products. He couldn't help but ask curiously, "Why did you buy so many? There's buy one get one free, buy two get one free, and there's even free samples." "I'll take them all back." Fatty Lai shrugged helplessly. They're really good at promoting things. That's right. All right, I'll go back and do some research, Lin Yi nodded. Back at the villa, Meng Yao and Yushu felt as if a lifetime had passed since they last saw each other. Back then, when they brought Lin Yi, General Wei Wu, and Skybolt Pig out of this villa, they thought that they would never come back again. This place would become someone else's territory, but not long after they came back. Why is it so messy? Lin Yi saw all sorts of boxes in the living room. These are from Shu's villa. Her villa is also under Dad's name. Meng Yao said as she told Meng Yao about how Zhang Wen had left the villa to Meng Yao. I see. Since you've moved it here, just find a place to put it properly. Don't send it back. Lin Yi nodded. We're going to school in Donghai soon anyway. It's fine if there's a lot of stuff here. Wu Qintian, help Yao Yao and Shu pack up. I'll go look at Fatty Lai's medicine. Right, General Wei Wu and Skybolt Pig are still at Grandma Sun's house. Oh, right, the car is still under the overpass. I'll go get it together? Meng Yao said. Let Wu Qintian go with you guys. I'll be worried, Lin Yi said. Okay, boss. Wu Qintian, Meng Yao, and Yushu went to get the car and pick up General Weiwu and Skybolt Pig. Lin Yi, on the other hand, went to his room and poured all the products from Dr. Kang's medical company on the table. He started studying them one by one. The first one Lin Yi opened was Dr. Kang's golden creation. Lin Yi could clearly feel that it was different from before. It could be said that this golden creation was completely different from Dr. Kang's golden creation. It was more like a jerry-built version of Lin Yi's injury medicine. Chapter 1853. A call from a superstar. This person wasn't as good at medicine as Lin Yi, but it was good enough that he could reach this stage. House Kong had a master behind them after all. Lin Yi's suspicions were further confirmed after he saw the golden creation's shoddy materials. It wasn't possible to make a big deal out of this golden creation, so Lin Yi put it aside. If Lin Yi wanted to reverse the situation, he had to create some negative impact on Dr. Kang's medical company. Even if Lin Yi didn't understand business, he knew this simple logic. Otherwise, even if Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company came up with a similar product, it wouldn't be able to reverse the situation. Fighting a price war wasn't going to work anymore, because Dr. Kang's medical company also had control over low-cost medicine. The next target was the special edition of Golden Creation. For the 299 yuan special edition, Lin Yi didn't need to look to know that House Kong must have changed the formula. This wasn't the skin-beautifying golden creation from the auction, but a new product based on Lin Yi's special edition injury medicine. Otherwise, House Kong would lose a lot of money just by using the Millennium Snow Lotus. As expected, this was a very normal formula, an upgraded version of golden creation. Lin Yi took a sniff of the medicine, and Lin Yi was shocked. House Kang's apothecary was quite skillful. After all, the ingredients he'd added were similar to the ones he'd added into the special edition injury medicine. But after a while, a confused look appeared on Lin Yi's face. There was no problem with the medicine, but to bring out the effect of the medicine, the special edition golden creation seemed to be missing one ingredient. Lin Yi's special edition injury medicine had it, but Dr. Kang's did not. But if it didn't have it, how could this medicine have the effect of removing scars? Lin Yi applied a little bit of the special edition golden creation on his hand. After a while, Lin Yi's face showed a look of understanding and happiness. Hormones. Although a small amount of this hormone was not harmful to the human body, it went against Dr. Kang's slogan of a pure herbal preparation with no side effects. This was an excellent point of attack. Lin Yi found a pen and paper and quickly wrote down the hormone content and test method of golden creation. He was going to give it to Fatty Lai tomorrow. After that, Lin Yi began to study Dr. Kang's 100 pain reliever. Although the smell of medicinal materials was very strong, when Lin Yi tasted it, he still tasted something unusual. Aminopyrine was a kind of chemical often used in Western medicine, such as painkillers and cold medicines. Although it was widely used in many kinds of medicine, it was now used by the Kong family in the so-called pure herbal preparation Dr. Kang's 100 pain reliever. It seemed a little strange. Long-term use could even cause liver and kidney dysfunction, but the instruction manual didn't mention this. Naturally, Lin Yi wouldn't let it go so easily. He continued to write down the chemical name and test method on the paper. The last one was Dr. Kang's weight loss medicine. Looking at the weight loss medicine, Lin Yi's brows furrowed deeply. This was the most complicated medicine Lin Yi had found in all of Dr. Kang's products. According to Lin Yi's preliminary estimation, there were more than 20 kinds of medicine. This made Lin Yi unable to calculate what was in it in such a short time. He didn't understand the pharmacology and properties of the medicine, but Lin Yi wasn't in a hurry. When old Lin was teaching Lin Yi his medical skills, he would often mix different herbs together, so that Lin Yi could tell what was in them. This also trained Lin Yi's sensitive sense of smell. According to old Lin, this was the only way he could avoid being poisoned to death. The sound of a car came from the yard. Lin Yi looked up and saw the Grand Cherokee driving back. Wu Chintian, the Miss, and Shu were all back. General Weiwu and Skybolt Pig got off the car with them. As for Grandma Sun, she didn't come with them. Lin Yi put down the things in his hands and walked out of the room. Meng Yao just happened to enter the door, so Lin Yi asked, "Yao Yao, Grandma Sun didn't come with you?" "No, she said that she was with us when we went to Donghai. She's still living in the old house these few days. She has some feelings for it, after living there for so many years. She didn't want to leave," Meng Yao said. "That's good." Lin Yi nodded. He took Grandma Sun away, because he didn't want her to live there alone. She might attract the Yulu and the 13th house's revenge. She was alone and naturally, she wouldn't be able to handle it. But at least for now, she wouldn't be in danger before the other houses reacted. "Iron Fist Wu, come help me move the boxes." Shu started packing the things from her villa. "Okay." Chen Tian nodded without a word and went to help Shu with the work. A mystic late-phase peak, a dual practitioner of both body and spirit, had become a porter? Only people like this would appear by Lin Yi's side. Of course, this was in the common world. If it was in the ancient sects, it wouldn't be so rare. The outer disciples of the Ice Palace did odd jobs other than training. Lin Yi went back to his room and continued studying the diet medicine. His phone rang. He picked it up and looked at the name on the screen. Lin Yi was a little surprised. "Su Shirhan? Why are you calling all of a sudden?" To be honest, Lin Yi and Su Shirhan weren't that close. But they weren't that close either. After all, the people around him were all infatuated with her. There was Xiao Xiao, Yao Yao Xuan. Who else was there? Lin Yi paused and shook his head helplessly. "Lin Yi, I heard that Miracle Dr. Guan's company is in trouble." "I just came back from promoting overseas and heard about this. Do you need any help?" Su Shirhan asked. As the spokesperson of Miracle Dr. Guan's company, she often bought their painkillers. Naturally, she paid close attention to the company. She heard about this as soon as she came back, so she called Lin Yi immediately. "Temporarily. No need, I can solve it." Lin Yi didn't expect Su Shirhan to call. He was a little surprised. His relationship with Su Shirhan wasn't that good, was it? But Su Shirhan and Xiao Xiao were really close. "Oh, it's okay. If you need anything, just tell me," Su Shirhan said. "Need?" Lin Yi listened to Su Shirhan's beautiful voice, and his imagination started to wander. Su Shirhan's voice was soft and gentle, and it was hard for a normal man to not have his imagination run wild, especially when she said it so flirtatiously. Target equals underscore blank. Chapter 1854. Very angry, however, Lin Yi was a little annoyed. What was wrong with him? He was a little angry today. It must be because he wanted to peek at the miss and got interrupted. He had nowhere to vent, so he came to tease Su Shirhan. Bastard pop-up window. Hearing the exaggeration in Lin Yi's tone, Su Shirhan frowned. In her impression, Lin Yi wasn't a frivolous person. He didn't even look at her. How could he say something like that? So although Su Shirhan was a little annoyed, she still patiently said, "Yes, is there anything I can help with?" "There is one thing." Lin Yi heard the annoyance in Su Shirhan's voice. He immediately calmed himself down and said seriously, "I found out that Dr. Kang's medicine company has some chemicals in their medicine. It doesn't match their advertisement. When they have a press conference, can you help support them? With your influence, it will attract a lot of media." Of course, Su Shirhan agreed without hesitation. She was thinking, did she misunderstand Lin Yi? She just had to deal with a rich young master's pursuit abroad. Did she become a little sensitive? "Thanks, I'll get Fatty Lai to contact you when the time comes," Lin Yi said. "Okay." Su Shirhan heard that Lin Yi's tone was normal. There was nothing wrong with it. She let out a sigh of relief. After ending the call, Lenny continued to study the weight loss medicine. Every time he sniffed out a herb, Lenny noted it down on a piece of paper. He only stopped when he had identified all the herbs in the medicine. A normal doctor wouldn't be able to do this, but Lenny grew up in a pile of herbs. Ever since he started practicing the art of dragon mastery, he had become much more sensitive to things in the outside world. As long as he touched herbs, he would have a photographic memory. Even old Lin had to admit that he wasn't as good as him. But according to Zhang Liju's notes, this ability was related to a person's physique, and people with this kind of extreme sensitivity towards herbs, if they were to become a refiner, they would be able to walk to the top of the pyramid. Even Zhang Liju himself could only control a part of it. He wasn't very sensitive. Being able to guess 8 out of 10 herbs was already very impressive. The hidden house you naturally didn't have such a master. Otherwise, they wouldn't have asked for Lin Yi's recipe. Kuan. Of course, as happy as he was that he had this ability, his control over the refinement fire was too weak. It was a waste to have this ability, but not be able to control the refinement fire. No matter how good he was, he wouldn't be able to become a refiner. At most, he would be the refiner's apprentice. He shook his head to get rid of those unrealistic thoughts, and started to analyze the prescription in his hands. No poison, no side effects, no rebound, no dieting, healthy and natural weight loss. This was the slogan of Dr. Kang's weight loss medicine. But, with the previous 2 medicines as an example, Lenny didn't believe that there was nothing fishy about this at all. Lenny really couldn't think of any use for these medicines together. Many of them didn't match at all, so how could it have the effect of weight loss? If it weren't for Lin Yi's confidence in his nose and mouth, he would have thought that he had made a mistake. Lenny furrowed his brows as he fell into deep thought. After a while, Lenny finally opened his eyes, a look of understanding on his face. This was 2 prescriptions, not 1. Lenny previously thought of it as a prescription, so naturally, there would be a lot of illogicality and contradictions. But, if it was divided into 2 prescriptions, there would be no problem. However, after Lenny divided the pharmacy, there was a trace of anger on his face. A doctor had a benevolent heart. Although Lenny wasn't a good person, and he wouldn't simply make a house call. As long as Lenny made a move, he would try his best to cure the disease of others. He wouldn't do it perfunctorily or cure this disease again and again repeatedly. In Dr. Kang's weight loss medicine, one of the prescriptions was nothing special. It was a very ordinary tonic prescription. But what made Lenny a little puzzled was that the people who wanted to lose weight weren't those who were dying. Why would they use this tonic prescription? Many of the medicines in this prescription could replace food to provide some nutrients to the human body. But only some people who couldn't eat by themselves would use the medicinal solution brewed from this prescription to maintain their lives. Nowadays, most people use glucose instead. It could be said that this prescription was almost no longer used by people. But after looking at the other prescription, Lenny understood why it needed to be nourished. The second prescription wasn't a cure at all. In Lin Yi's opinion, it was a scourge poison. This prescription could inhibit the function of the digestive tract, obstruct the digestion and absorption of food, and let the food be directly excreted from the body. Long-term use could even cause gastrointestinal dysfunction, or even damage the gastrointestinal function. The principle of these 2 prescriptions was also very clear. One used medicine to provide a small amount of nutrients to the human body, and the other prevented the digestion of the food that was eaten every day to achieve the goal of losing weight. But how was this losing weight? It was simply a scam. Short-term use could have an obvious effect, but long-term use would damage the stomach and intestines, and it would be too late to regret it. This kind of black-hearted money was what Lenny hated the most. The reason why no one found anything wrong with this prescription was that the person who made it was smart. He mixed the 2 prescriptions together. Even if someone found the prescription, they wouldn't be able to understand the principle behind it. Only people like Lin Yi, who had a considerable talent in pharmacology, medicinal properties, and identification of medicinal herbs, could see the flaws in it. Perhaps this was the main reason why the Kong family openly sold this product without fear. Lin Yi recorded the testing method and medicinal properties of the weight loss medicine. He completed an important task. To House Kong, naturally Lin Yi couldn't use the same method to deal with Housen. Although Lin Yi was a very domineering person, he had his principles. Housen used extreme methods to deal with Pengzhan, so Lin Yi would use extreme methods to deal with them. However, House Kong, at least on the surface, used legal methods to compete with Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. If Lin Yi wanted to take back the market, naturally, it would be best to use legal methods instead of forcefully seizing the market. That would damage Miracle Dr. Guan's reputation. As for the culprit, Right 13, he was killed by Lin Yi as well. Now that he was dealing with House Kong, he could use normal methods to destroy them. On the second day, the news of Pengzhan Industries changing ownership spread throughout the entire Songshan city. Chapter 1855. Martial arts calculation, but this time, it was back in Pengzhan's hands. Although they didn't know much about the secrets behind it, Pengzhan Industries was once again under Pengzhan's control. As for the small shareholders, Pengzhan didn't blame them. It was normal for them to flatter the new chairman. He could only blame himself for not having a few close friends. Miracle Dr. Guan's medicine company didn't return to business. After Lin Yi gave the testing methods and the flaws of Dr. Kang's medicine to Fatty Lai started to look for a professional testing report. He used the 2 billion Lin Yi brought back to buy back the factories and land that he sold at a low price. Although the buying price was higher than the selling price, it wasn't a big deal with House Sun and House Wu's support. Lin Yi only smiled at Wu Gonggao and Elder Sun's actions and didn't comment on it. He only told Fatty Lai that if they were willing to lend him the money, they should take it first. Businessmen always cared about profits, and Lin Yi only treated Wu Gonggao and Elder Sun as businessmen. After this incident, he would naturally compensate them with some benefits, but it was impossible for him to open his heart to them like House Lu. Of course, Lin Yi didn't expect Wu Gonggao and Old Sun to become friends. Lin Yi only befriended Wu Qintian and Sun Jingyi. As for the prescription to fight against Dr. Kang's medicine company, Lin Yi wrote it for Fatty Lai. Miracle Dr. Guan's medicine company started to return to business quietly, but they didn't release any products to the market. The people around Lin Yi all knew that Fatty Lai was waiting for the right opportunity. He was waiting for the testing report to come out and surprise everyone. School was about to start soon, and Mingyao and Yushu, on the other hand, had been preparing their luggage for the trip to Donghai. Lin Yi, on the other hand, had been practicing that weird technique and the second stage of the art of dragon mastery in his room. The practitioner's arts didn't have any actual moves, but from Lin Yi's point of view, since it was taken out from the cave, even if it was a support practitioner's arts, there had to be some logic behind it. He had to finish this before he finished the second stage of the art of dragon mastery. There might be even more powerful techniques waiting for him in the cave. As for the materials used to condense the jade pendant, Lin Yi asked about it through Fatty Lai's connections, but the results disappointed Lin Yi. There was only blue crystal powder, pure topaz and colored steel. Fatty Lai said that he could try to find it through his connections. As for the remaining two, pure topaz was something that could only be found by luck. As for the colored steel, he had never heard of it before. Xu Amin, on the other hand, was acquainted with a reputable collector and jade sculptor. Perhaps he had pure topaz in his possession. This news made Lin Yi quite excited, and he decided to pay that master a visit when he had the time to see if he could get his hands on pure topaz. As for the colored steel, Lin Yi could only leave it to fate. The people around him didn't know what it was, And that colored steel was something that Lin Yi had never seen before. How could steel be colored naturally? These few days of practicing at home, he didn't gain much. The second stage of the art of dragon mastery was obviously much more difficult than the first stage. Lin Yi had been practicing for so many days, but he was still stuck at the initial stage. He could only use it with familiarity. And this was the foundation he'd laid down when he forced out the fire poison. Otherwise, it would be even more jerky. The 10 stages of the technique, on the other hand, allowed Lin Yi to reach the third stage directly. He didn't feel any pressure at all, and he was moving towards the fourth stage. Of course, the technique also stated that the first 3 stages were for early Earth class practitioners. In other words, even if Lin Yi reached the third stage, he wouldn't be able to reach the fourth stage without reaching mid-Earth class. Since that was the case, Lin Yi naturally slowed down his practice. As he moved towards the third stage, Lin Yi realized that it was getting harder and harder to go any further. Although he was about to step into the fourth stage, he was still a little bit away. This was the bottleneck of his strength. In the remaining time, Lin Yi picked up the technique that Faubert had given him, Frenzy Fist. Before, perhaps because of the technique, Lin Yi's practice of this technique was a little jerky, and he didn't make much progress. When fighting against enemies, he couldn't bring out the effects of this technique. However, Lin Yi knew that this technique was definitely not an ordinary one. Back then, Faubert was the young master of some sect. The technique that he practiced must have been very powerful, and definitely not an ordinary one. The reason why Lin Yi couldn't practice it was purely because of himself. But now, since Lin Yi couldn't find a more suitable technique in the cave, he could only continue practicing the technique that Faubert had given him. There was no one around him who could ask him about the technique. Old Lin didn't have anyone, and his master wasn't by his side. He could only rely on himself. Frenzy Fist had a domineering name. From the name, it could be seen that Faubert must have practiced the fire elements practitioner's art. As for what it was, Lin Yi didn't ask, because Lin Yi couldn't give up on the art of dragon mastery and practice another practitioner's art. Every cultivator could only cultivate one natal mental cultivation method. If they cultivated too many, not only would they not be able to achieve anything, they would instead be restrained and would not be able to achieve anything. Furthermore, if they cultivated 2 mental cultivation methods that countered each other, it was very likely that they would suffer from qi deviation. That was why Lin Yi was so careful when choosing the arts for Mengyao and Yushu, and didn't make any random arrangements. He didn't know why, but whenever Lin Yi thought about the past, especially the things related to Mengyao and Yushu, his heart would throb for no reason. It was as if he had forgotten something, but at the same time, it felt like it was only natural. Frenzy Fist first form. Lin Yi had practiced this form no less than 100 times, but he still couldn't fully grasp it. The second and third forms were even more out of the question. Lin Yi couldn't use them at all. He couldn't even activate the first form, let alone the others. This was also the reason why Lin Yi failed every time he faced an enemy. At this time, Lin Yi practiced again, but he didn't expect that he would succeed on the first try. He'd failed 8 out of 10 times, and only succeeded twice. He hadn't used it for more than half a month, and the chances of him succeeding on his first try were too low. He hadn't used it for more than half a month, and his skills were rusty. Lin Yi's 2 fists pushed out. It was a simple punch, but it contained a huge amount of power. Chapter 1856. Once it was successfully unleashed, it was like the water of the Yangtze River surging over, as if it was a wildfire that covered the mountains and the plains. The huge fire aura was frightening, and even Lin Yi, who was the one using it, was shocked by the power that was unleashed at full power. When the first form of Frenzy Fist was successfully executed, Lin Yi didn't feel anything at first. But as the mental cultivation method revolved in his body, he pushed the first form of frenzy fist to its peak. This made Lenny extremely shocked. It wasn't because of the huge power of the frenzy fist. Lenny had felt this before. But because this was the first time Lenny executed the first form of frenzy fist so thoroughly. Although Lenny had the experience of successfully activating it before, he had never executed this move so skillfully and with such great power. Looking at his fists that seemed to be wrapped in red flames, Lenny was surprised. Perhaps, this was the true power of the first form of frenzy fist. If he had executed this form earlier, then when he faced the blue-haired guy, Lenny wouldn't have needed to compress the chi bomb. He could have just used frenzy fist directly to finish off the blue-haired guy. Because the blue-haired guy was just a guest of the Yu family, the martial skill he mastered wasn't any core powerful martial skill. Therefore, the first form of frenzy fist was enough to finish him off. However, this first form of frenzy fist, under the activation of Lenny, didn't seem to have any intention of stopping. The continuous fire shadows that filled the sky reflected the entire room in red. If it wasn't for Lenny choosing an open space to practice his martial skill, he would have burned the bed and the desk. Frenzy Fist second form. Lenny had already memorized the chant of the second form by heart. It was just that he hadn't been able to execute it. But at this moment, he executed it naturally, as if everything was so natural, smooth like flowing water, without the slightest sense of obstruction. It was as if the first style had been unleashed to its limit, and naturally transformed into the second style. It was completely different from the time when Lenny used it alone, where he was unable to unleash it at all. The power of the first style was already very strong, but when the second style was released, Lenny knew what it meant to pale in comparison. Waves of heat surged in the room, and even as a practitioner, Lenny was sweating profusely from the heat. What an overbearing martial skill, Lenny thought to himself. How heroic was Faubert back then. No wonder when he mentioned the things that happened in the past, there was a trace of pride and nostalgia. As for the martial technique, when Faubert taught it to Lenny, he did not explain much. It was entirely because of the problem of matching the mental cultivation method. Lenny did not cultivate Faubert's mental cultivation method. So no matter what, he would not be able to display the martial technique to the extreme. Even if he boasted about it to the heavens, Lenny would not be able to activate it. So it was better not to mention it. Fire. Fire. But Faubert did not expect that Lenny would actually be able to activate it miraculously. And it was a success on the first try. At this moment, Lenny's fist was like a burning comet, and Lenny's body was like a fire spirit, releasing a huge amount of fire energy. Frenzy Fire Fist third style. Lenny's body turned, and he actually activated the third style that he had never tried before. When this style was used, Lenny's face was filled with horror. Previously, Lenny had never activated the third style of Frenzy Fire Fist, because he could not activate the second style, and he was not familiar with the first style. It was impossible for Lenny to bite off more than he could chew to study the third style. But at this moment, when the third style was activated, it was as if he had practiced it 1,000 times. And it was released so naturally. Of course, these three styles were naturally practiced in Lenny's mind 1,000 times. But it was only in his mind. Lenny could not activate it himself, so he would certainly simulate it in his mind, but the power would be far from the real thing. Although Lenny's fist did not hit the wall or the furniture, after the third style of Frenzy Fire Fist was used, the heat wave caused by the third style had a posture of burning the wall and the furniture. Lenny hurriedly stopped the move and stopped practicing. The third style of Frenzy Fire Fist was indeed extraordinary. Although it was far from the powerful heat brought by the fire poison chi, Lenny was absolutely sure that he could win against an enemy of the same rank or slightly higher rank. Lenny had experienced Blue Hairs and Right 13's martial arts. Blue Hairs was negligible, but Right 13's martial arts were quite domineering. But now, even if he faced Right 13, who was in the middle phase of Earth rank, even without the fire poison chi, Lenny was confident that he could win. Of course, This was under the condition that he could successfully activate the third style of Frenzy Fire Fist. If he could not activate it, then Lin Yi would only be sending himself to his death. The heat wave in the room had not yet dissipated, and in this scorching heat, Lin Yi's mood was surging and excited. He comprehended the 3 styles of Frenzy Fire Fist just like that. Lin Yi knew that he was not a martial arts genius, but he was able to comprehend 3 powerful martial arts in an instant. This made Lin Yi a little suspicious. What was the reason for this? Was it because after he was poisoned by the fire poison, he suddenly had an epiphany about the fire attribute martial arts? Or was it because he had practiced the second stage of the art of dragon mastery? Or was it because of the 3 auxiliary martial arts? Or it was a coincidence that he accidentally used it, and then he couldn't activate it again? Thinking of the last possibility, Lin Yi hurried to the backyard of the villa and activated the Frenzy Fire Fist again. This time, Lin Yi did not activate the first style, but chose to directly activate the third style. Whoosh! Endless flames burst out from Lin Yi's fist, and in an instant, it set off a raging wave. Success! Lin Yi was shocked to find that he actually succeeded again, as if catalyzing the third style of Frenzy Fire Fist was a very easy thing to do. However, in his shock, Lin Yi regretfully found a flaw. That was, the third style that was directly catalyzed was not as powerful as the third style that was naturally transformed from the first style that he had just practiced. Although it was just catalyzed and not yet at its peak, compared to when he used it in the house, Lin Yi could clearly feel the difference between the two. Of course, if there was no previous comparison, the third style alone was already very powerful. In the courtyard, Lin Yi did not have the previous scruples, and could activate the third style to its limit without any hindrance. Lin Yi also wanted to see how powerful the third style was. In an instant, a whirlpool of heat formed on Lin Yi's fist, and the faster Lin Yi activated it, the faster the whirlpool rotated. If this kind of fire whirlpool hit a person, the result would be obvious. Even an Earth-rank cultivator would be in trouble. Chapter 1857, Simulation Technique, Part 2. At this moment, there were only 8 words in Lin Yi's mind. Continuous, carefree, and unrestrained. Lin Yi practiced this technique for a full half an hour before slowly stopping. At this moment, Lin Yi understood that he had finally mastered this technique. As for how he mastered it, he could only ask Jiao Lao. Lin Yi himself was at a loss. Lin Yi let out a long breath, and suddenly realized that there were a few more people around him. Because he was in his own yard, and because he was so excited, he didn't pay attention to the things around him. It wasn't until he finished the skill that he realized there was someone beside him. He was slightly startled. He had been careless. Although Lin Yi's name was like the sun in the sky, and no one would dare to challenge him, there was always a possibility. What if an enemy showed up? What if an enemy ambushed him while he was practicing the technique? Although the possibility of an ambush was very small under such a domineering technique, it was better to be careful. Yao Yao Shu Faubert Chinti on your back. Lin Yi had just finished speaking when he realized that the 4 of them were looking at him with shock and disbelief. It was as if he had done something amazing. Shield bro, are you practicing the technique that killed the 3 Earth class masters that day? Yushu asked. You've mastered the 3 forms of Frenzy Fist? Faubert was very surprised. You used this technique against the 3 Earth class masters that day? Although they had heard that Lin Yi had killed 3 Earth class masters in one hit, Lin Yi didn't say how he did it. Uncle Fu and the others were curious, but they didn't ask. Only now did they open their mouths to ask. Uncle Fu, you're the one who taught me these 3 styles. You should know how powerful they are. Is it possible to kill 3 Earth class masters in one move and burn them to ashes? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. I don't think so. Faubert shook his head. But the power I used back then wasn't as great as yours. Although I'm familiar with it, it's still lacking compared to you. Ah, Linny heard Falbert's words. He actually surpassed Falbert back then? Why did it sound so funny? One had to know that he wasn't even familiar with it before today. I'm ashamed. I've trained for many years, but I can't compare to you who's trained for a few months. Uncle Fu blushed with shame as he said. But Master was able to use the 20th form of the frenzied fire fist. It wasn't difficult for him to instantly kill 3 Earth rank experts. Ugh. Actually, I only practiced for an afternoon. Linny scratched his head, a little embarrassed. Hiss. Falbert sucked in a breath of cold air. An afternoon. He knew that Linny wouldn't lie to him, so it was only natural that he'd said he'd spent the whole afternoon. But Linny being able to learn the first 3 forms of the frenzy fist in a single afternoon was the only word Li Fu could use to describe Lin Yi as a genius. What happened to you is way too strange. You were able to repair both my and Qintian's meridians, so it's not strange at all that you spent the whole afternoon learning the frenzy fist. Linny himself didn't know what was going on. Could this be the legendary sudden enlightenment? But Lin Yi was full of anticipation for the last few forms of frenzy fist. The 20th form could kill 3 Earth-class masters with one move. Wasn't that what Lin Yi was looking forward to? So Lin Yi quickly asked, Falbert, do you have the last few forms of frenzy fist? I only have the first 10 forms. The 11th form is something only Sky-class masters can use. I didn't memorize the chant at the time. Falbert said. Lin Yi blinked. Then what's your master's level? Sky-class. Falbert said. Puffed. Cough. Lin Yi almost choked at Falbert's words. A Sky-class master killing 3 Earth-class masters with one move wasn't something to be shocked about. Was it? This made Lin Yi a little disappointed. How could there be such a thing in this world? If someone of the same level could kill 3 in one move, wouldn't that make them invincible? Actually, before I met you, I really didn't know which practitioner it was, but to be able to kill 3 practitioners. Uncle Fu smiled bitterly. Actually, for a Sky class, if it's a Sky class early stage, wanting to kill 3 Earth class is a very difficult thing, not to mention 1 Earth class late stage. That day it was an accident. Lin Yi didn't hide anything from Falbert and the others. They were his people, and they wouldn't harm him. I forced out all the fire poison chi from my body, and used it to burn 3 Earth class masters to death. It wasn't any martial arts technique. I see. Falbert and Qintian nodded. They had been wondering how Lin Yi could kill 3 stronger Earth class masters in one hit, even though he was only an early stage Earth class. Shield Bro is the best. He actually knows how to make use of trash. Yushu said. Mengyao was speechless as well. If Lin Yi didn't make use of trash, would they be able to escape? However, after activating the 3 forms of frenzy fist, Lin Yi felt an indescribable tiredness. He didn't feel anything when he activated it, but now that he stopped, he felt as if half of his chi had been used up. It wasn't enough to affect his movements, but he was really tired. Falbert, does this frenzy fist use up a lot of chi? Lin Yi asked. Naturally. Falbert paused after hearing Lin Yi's words, but remembered that Lin Yi didn't even know martial arts techniques. But it's not that frenzy fist uses up a lot of chi. It's that all martial arts techniques use up a lot of chi. The higher the level of the technique, the more so it is. Even in a battle between masters, they can't use martial arts without limit. Otherwise, they'll die of exhaustion before they kill the enemy. I see. Lin Yi nodded. However, the chi used up by martial arts techniques is very easy to replenish. It's different from other ways of using chi. Falbert said. Although martial arts techniques require a large amount of chi to activate, it doesn't completely release the chi after using it. A part of it is converted into other ways of staying in the body. As long as you rest, it can be converted into chi again. It's that magical. Lin Yi was surprised, but thinking about it, it made sense. If it was really hard to recover, who would use martial arts techniques in the first place? It wouldn't be worth it if all the hard work they put into training was gone. Chapter 1858. It's not really magical. These are all basic knowledge that all cultivators know. As for a freak like you, there are very few people who don't know about your strength. Faubert smiled bitterly and shook his head. Lenny was slightly embarrassed. Indeed, his master had left a long time ago. Although old Lin had cultivated an internal mental cultivation technique, it was only a supplementary mental cultivation technique, not to mention any martial techniques. The only person who could guide him in the path of martial arts, Jiao Yazi, was an illusory body with incomplete memories. Often, his memories were incomplete, and he had to recover them. This made Lenny feel very bitter. Then, starting from the 11th form of the frenzied fire fist, I am unable to activate the remaining 10 forms. Is it because I do not have enough true qi in my body? My strength hasn't reached that level, so I can't provide the corresponding amount of true qi to activate the martial skill? Lenny asked. You could say that. However, that is not entirely the case. If you exhaust all the true qi in your body, you should still be able to use the next move. However, that is usually a method to save your life in a life or death situation. Faubert said, because the zhen qi required to activate the next move is not something that my current strength can withstand. After activating it, not only will my entire body enter a very weak state, it will also be impossible for my zhen qi to recover completely. This is because the method that the next move will transform into will not be converted back by the current level of the inner force cultivation method. In other words, it will drop a level. But at this point, Faubert looked at Lin Yi with astonishment and envy. What's wrong? Lin Yi was a little creeped out by Faubert's stare. Theoretically speaking, you should have fainted. Faubert smiled bitterly and said, it's normal for an early Earth class to be able to use the first form of the frenzy fist. At best, they might be able to use the second form, but the third form, that's something that can only be done by a peak early Earth class. He hasn't fainted yet. So the theory I mentioned earlier, maybe it doesn't apply to you. Actually, I'm a little tired too. Lenny sweated. Could this be the effect of the art of dragon mastery? Although Lenny felt that he had consumed a lot of true qi, he did not feel tired and powerless. Faubert was speechless. At night, before Lenny entered the space of the jade pendant to cultivate, he couldn't wait to report what had happened today. He told it to Jiao Yazi. Jiao Lao, am I a genius? Lenny asked after recounting his strange encounter today. He added another sentence in a very arrogant manner. Uffed. Jiao Lao was about to explain when he burst out laughing. I say, little Lin, aren't you a little too smug? Some geniuses cultivated the art of dragon mastery for 10 years. You haven't even completed the first level? Lenny was a little embarrassed. I was just saying. Today when I was practicing the frenzied flame fist, it was as smooth as flowing water. There wasn't any sense of obstruction. This feeling is as if the frenzied flame fist was tailor-made for me. That's true, but not exactly. To be precise, it's tailor-made for you to practice the frenzied flame fist. Jiao Yazi said. What does that mean? Lenny was slightly stunned. He asked. During this time, my memory has slowly recovered. Although it's not complete, it's enough to answer some of your questions. Jiao Yazi said. Do you have any questions? Didn't I ask before? Lenny said. Oh, you're talking about practicing martial arts. That's normal. Jiao Yazi nodded and explained. The art of dragon mastery can produce all-purpose true qi. In other words, the art of dragon mastery is an all-purpose mental cultivation method. In terms of martial arts practice, you can practice any martial arts. So, it's not that the martial arts are tailor-made for you, but you tailor-made for the martial arts. It can't be? Lenny was shocked after hearing it, but he was also ecstatic. Doesn't that mean that I can practice whatever martial arts is powerful? And I don't have to worry about finding a martial arts that matches my mental cultivation method? That's it. Jiao Yazi nodded. Now you know the benefits of the art of dragon mastery, right? Then, why can't I practice it before? After Lenny calmed down, he had some doubts. I've practiced the frenzied flame fist countless times before, but I've never practiced it skillfully. It's always very jerky. That's because you didn't practice martial arts and the second level of the art of dragon mastery. You can't do without either. Jiao Yazi said. The first level of the art of dragon mastery is only applicable before the earth rank, which is the so-called foundation building stage. For practitioners, the stage before the earth rank is the stage to build the foundation. Only when you reach the earth rank can you practice martial arts. This is a turning point. I see. Lenny suddenly understood. In other words, practicing the second level of the art of dragon mastery is the mental cultivation method that matches with martial arts? You can say that. However, although the mental cultivation method is an all-purpose mental cultivation method, it can only be converted into all-purpose vital energy. If you want to practice martial arts, you need to convert the mental cultivation method into a corresponding mental cultivation method that matches with other martial arts. So, you need another conversion mantra. Jiao Yazi said. Is it that martial art? Lenny thought of the martial art that he brought out from the cave. That's right. That martial art can also be called an all-purpose martial art. As long as you practice this all-purpose martial art, no matter what martial arts you practice, you can automatically convert your mental cultivation method into the most suitable mental cultivation method for that martial art. Then, you can bring out the greatest effect of the martial art. Jiao Yazi said. This is also the reason why you are more powerful than the original owner of the martial art. Because although their mental cultivation method has been tempered and matched for a long time, it can't be automatically converted. This is too heaven-defying. Hearing Jiao Yazi's words, Lenny could only describe his current feelings with these few words. This was such a powerful martial art. Previously, Lenny thought that it was a useless mental cultivation method. He didn't expect it to be so powerful. After a while, Lenny let out a long sigh. In other words, not only could he use the frenzy fist, as long as he had the corresponding martial art manual, he could practice it. Thinking of this, Lenny felt his blood boiling. It's not heaven-defying, but little Lin, I have to remind you of an old saying. A man who is never content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Don't think that you're invincible just because you've practiced a lot of martial arts. It's not easy to master even one of the powerful martial arts. Elder Jiao said in a serious tone. Today, you were able to use the 3 forms of the frenzy fist so quickly. It may seem like it's because of the second stage of the art of dragon mastery and the omnipotent technique, but isn't it also the result of thousands of times you've practiced in your mind? If you didn't have these hundreds and thousands of times of practice, how could you activate it without any hindrance? You need some time to familiarize yourself with the chant, right? Chapter 1859. Jiao Lao, you are right. Lenny nodded solemnly. He was so shocked that he started sweating. Just now, for a moment, Lenny had the feeling that he was the best in the world. But now that he thought about it, it was an abnormal sense of confidence. If it wasn't for Jiao Yazi's timely reminder, he might have gone down the wrong path. If one were to blindly pursue learning more martial techniques, one might not even know which martial technique to use when facing an enemy. If one were to think too much and waste time, one would have long been beaten to the ground by the enemy. Hee, I was just saying. It's good that you remember it. Jiao Yazi nodded. Oh right, last time, how did I go mad? After Lenny recovered, He was busy practicing and didn't have time to ask about it. You still don't know? Jiao Yazi was startled. I don't know either. You don't know either? Lenny was even more surprised. After I fainted, what happened? You don't know? I don't know. My connection with the outside world is through you. You were unconscious. How would I know what happened? Jiao Yazi shook his head. Plus, only when you and I are actively connected can I sense what's happening outside. Other times I am closed off. Looks like I can only ask Shu and the others. After Lenny woke up, he asked Yao Yao and Shu about his cultivation going mad. But they simply told him what happened. Under Old Lin's guidance, they went to Snowy Valley to ask for an ice spirit fruit. As for the process, they didn't go into details. Mrs. Personality was like this. No matter how much she paid, she wouldn't show it off. Lenny knew that although the ice spirit fruit wasn't as important as the Ice Palace's fire spirit fruit, they must have paid a great price for it. It was just that the eldest miss was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. She was unwilling to take credit. What made Lenny feel strange was that even though Missy didn't say anything, little Shu didn't say anything either. She didn't use her gossipy eloquence to tell him what happened. Lenny thought that perhaps it was because the eldest miss had given her a gag order. There's no need for that. Tell me what you did before you went berserk. I think something went wrong somewhere. Jiao Yazi said. All right. Lenny nodded and told Jiao Yazi everything that happened before he went berserk. After listening to Lin Yi's words, Jiao Yazi sighed speechlessly. What's wrong? Lenny was puzzled by Jiao Yazi's behavior. Brat Lin, what do you mean by haste makes waste? How many times have I said it before? A tall building starts from the ground, but you actually used another medicine to replace the body refining medicine. It would be strange if you didn't go berserk. Jiao Yazi smiled bitterly. How can the resting grass be replaced so easily? That's the key to calming the mind. But you replaced it, so it can't do the same. Isn't it normal to go berserk? Ling Yi's face instantly turned red. Before, he didn't ask Jiao Yazi for advice. He used his own knowledge of medicine to replace one of the ingredients, but the result was unexpected. 5 years? Why did I give you a 5-year limit? I'm afraid that you're too young and impatient. That's why I've set a 5-year limit on you. Jiao Yazi was disappointed that Lin Yi didn't live up to his expectations. But I didn't expect that after 10 years, your impatience still hasn't been polished. Really? It's because 10 years is too long. That's why I'm a little impatient. Lin Yi said embarrassedly with a red face. Next time when you refine the jade, I hope you won't make the same mistake. Otherwise, not only will you fail, you might even make me disappear, Jiao Yazi said. It won't happen next time. Lin Yi nodded and promised. Next time, I will definitely follow the instructions strictly. The product launch of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company started under everyone's shock and doubt. The crowd didn't understand. Didn't Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company go bankrupt because of Dr. Kang's medical group? Why did they make a comeback again? It wasn't that there weren't these kinds of companies that made a comeback after going bankrupt, but to be able to make a comeback in less than a month, this was a little rare. Because of this, a lot of media came to Miracle Dr. Guan's product launch with curiosity, especially with Su Shihan's presence. Many entertainment media came as well. This was the effect of a celebrity, so the revival of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company and their new product attracted the attention of all kinds of media. In an instant, even the prepared seats weren't enough. Many media that came to interview could only stand at the side and watch. Luckily, it was an open-air product launch, so it could be seen from nearby. House Kong received the news that Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company was reopening and had a new product. Although it was within House Kang's expectation, the speed still made Dr. Kong a little speechless. Father, don't worry too much. Even if Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company reopens and has a new product, they still don't have the strength to compete with us. They're cheap, we can be cheaper. Plus, we're an old brand, and they're new. Who do you think the consumers will choose? Kong Guifeng saw that Dr. Kong was a little worried, so he said, Yeah, Grandpa, we have the support and prescription of the hidden house you. Why are we afraid of miracle Dr. Guan? Xiaolong comforted. But only Kong Mingming didn't say anything. These few days, Kong Mingming had been quiet. He was scared by Lin Yi's strength. The 13th right was eliminated. And although the hidden house you didn't say anything, they didn't send anyone else. This made Kong Mingming very uneasy. He was afraid that Lin Yi would come at any time. After all, he was involved in the kidnapping of Guan Xian. If Lin Yi pursued this matter, the first person to die would be him, Kong Mingming. Xiaoming, why aren't you saying anything? Dr. Kong looked at Kong Mingming. Grandpa, I'm a little scared. I have a feeling that Lin Yi won't let this go. He will definitely take revenge on us. Kong Mingming hesitated and said, Oh, Dr. Kong frowned. Why do you say that? Xiaoming, what nonsense are you talking about? House Kong relies on fair competition. Even if Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company competes, it's just a normal business method. We have the price advantage and the prescription advantage. How can they compete with us? Kong Guifeng looked at Kong Mingming and scolded. Chapter 1860. Right 13th is dead. Lin Yi killed him. I'm the one who offended Lin Yi, not you guys. Kong Mingming shook his head dejectedly. Forget it, I'm going back to rest. You guys will know how powerful Lin Yi is in a bit. With that, Kong Mingming turned around and left. Miracle Dr. Kong sighed, his face growing darker and darker. Grandpa, don't listen to Xiaoming's nonsense. He must have been traumatized. He'll be fine after some time. Xiaolong was happy to see Kong Mingming like this. If Kong Mingming continued to be like this, then it would be time for Xiaolong to become the heir again. Guifeng, Xiaolong, you guys should go to the product launch and see what Lin Yi and Fatty Lai are up to, Dr. Kong said uneasily. There are some things we have to be careful of. Yes. Kong Guifeng and Xiaolong didn't think much of it. House Kang's products were selling like the sun in the sky. They didn't think that Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company had any way to reverse the situation. Of course, they didn't think that Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company was also like the sun in the sky. Didn't they go bankrupt in an instant? At the product launch, to the media's surprise, Fatty Lai released a few new products. All the products matched with Dr. Kang's medical company. But other than the big promotion for the injury medicine, he lowered it to the same price as Dr. Kang's medical company. But it was still slightly more expensive. The other products were actually much more expensive than Dr. Kang's products. This made all the reporters and onlookers at the scene drop their jaws. With such a price and similar products, how could Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company compete with Dr. Kang's medical company? They had no advantage at all. Although many people noticed that Dr. Kang's golden creation wasn't as effective as before, it was still cheaper. Miracle Dr. Guan's injury medicine was effective. However, the price was too high. In comparison, most people would settle for the second best option. Although Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company also had a promotion for their injury medicine, it was buy one get one free. It was equivalent to buying 2 bottles for 99 yuan and 49.50 yuan for 1 bottle. Dr. Kang's golden creation was buy one get 2 free at 99 yuan, which was equivalent to 33 yuan per bottle. In comparison, Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company didn't have a single product that had an advantage. Must say, if the injury medicine had the same effect as before, then some people might choose the slightly more expensive Miracle Dr. Guan's injury medicine. But what about other products? Although the superstar Su Shihan was the spokesperson, other than those loyal fans who would buy the more expensive products from Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company, who else would be willing to take the risk? It was not that he could not afford it. But there was no need to spend more money. And here I was wondering what kind of tricks he could play. It seems like father was worried for nothing. Kang Guifeng, who was standing in the middle of the crowd, smiled coldly and said to Xiaolong, "You only know how to repeat what a parrot says. You don't know how to innovate, and the price is ridiculously high. It'd be a miracle if they could win against House Kong like this." Yeah, I don't know what that Kong Ming Ming is worried about all day. If Lenny wanted to find him, he would have done it a long time ago. Why would he wait until now? Look at Pengzhan Industries, how much Housen took in, how much they spit out. This is the startup capital of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. Maybe it's all compensation to Lin Yi. One had to admit that Xiaolong's prediction was very accurate. Hit the nail on the head. What's the use of that? Let's go back. Other than Su Shihan's fans, no one will buy their products, Kang Guifeng said. But just as the two were about to leave, they heard Fatty Lai's voice again. The new product launch has ended here. But before Su Shihan performs, I still have to criticize the unethical practices of a certain brand in the industry. Wadash, all the media heard this news and went into an uproar. In the entire launch, Fatty Lai's words were the most interesting to them. Before this, Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company's products weren't competitive at all, which made them think that this launch was a failure. But they didn't expect this to be the main point. Kang Guifeng's eyelids twitched, and he stopped in his tracks. At the moment, the only company that could compete with Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company was Dr. Kang's medical group. If they wanted to expose something, they would naturally expose something related to Dr. Kang's medical group. Father, let's stay and see what they have to say. Xiaolong laughed coldly. If they were to spout nonsense, they could sue them for defamation. At this moment, Fatty Lai took out a report from an authoritative organization and started talking about it. Although he didn't say what brand it was, the products he was talking about, such as Golden Creation Special Edition, 100 Pain Disinfectant, and Weight Loss Medicine, were all popular products of Dr. Kang's medical company. Now that he took it out, everyone knew who he was talking about. When Fatty Lai accurately pointed out the chemical ingredients in the medicine and the harm of the weight loss medicine, Kang Guifeng and Xiaolong's faces changed instantly. They knew the chemical ingredients in Golden Creation Special Edition and 100 Pain Disinfectant, especially since Xiaolong was in charge of the entire research and production, so he wasn't unfamiliar with these two drugs. However, the hormone and aminopyrine weren't illegal drugs. Even if they were added, the most they could do was hide it. But the weight loss medicine was simply harmful. However, this prescription was given by the hidden House Yu, and no one in House Kong could understand the pharmacology and effects of the prescription. Although Xiaolong was a professional in this field, he couldn't understand the pharmacology and effects of the medicine. Now that Fatty Lai suddenly exposed it, both of their faces turned green. The negative effects of the Golden Creation Special Edition and 100 Pain Disinfectant were easier to deal with. After all, the hormone was also used to treat illnesses. Aminopyrine, pain reliever, and cold medicine also contain this chemical. But that weight loss medicine was basically the death of House Kong. If what Fatty Lai said was true, then Dr. Kang's medical company would face unprecedented pressure. Anyone who bought the medicine would reject it immediately. No matter how cheap Dr. Kang's medicine was, the consumers wouldn't accept it. They were paying for treatment, not for death. When Fatty Lai finished talking about the side effects of the weight loss medicine, the audience went wild. The media found a big piece of news. And the audience, some of whom were using Dr. Kang's weight loss medicine themselves, and some of their friends and relatives were using it. Now, all of them were cursing Dr. Kang's unscrupulousness. How could they come up with something so harmful? If they took it for a long time, wouldn't it be a slow poison? To be continued. Chapter 1861. Xiaolong, could he be lying on purpose? Kang Guifeng's face darkened as he asked. I don't think so. Xiaolong's face was as white as a sheet. The ingredients he mentioned were the recipes of our weight loss medicine. None of them are wrong. So since he said it, he must have asked the authorities to verify it. We're done. We're completely done for this time. Kang Guifeng heard Xiaolong's words, and he felt like his soul had left his body. The father and son were preparing to go back to House Kong to report the bad news. On the other side, Su Shihan's performance was attractive, but only the entertainment media was interested in it. The business media were thinking about how to dig deeper into the dark secrets of Dr. Kang's products. Before Su Shihan sang, she said firmly to the fans and cameras, I've been using the products of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. It's healthy, non-toxic and non-toxic. It's their foundation. Although it's a little expensive, but health is priceless. Everyone nodded in agreement. Yes, Dr. Kang, that old liar. Golden Creation was cheap, but he cut corners. The other medicines were all lies. And the weight loss medicine was even worse. Then, Su Shihan continued. Miracle Dr. Guan's medicine company's injury medicine promotion is a real promotion. It's a promotion under the condition that the quality is the same as before, not cutting corners. I can guarantee it with my reputation. Su Shihan, a superstar, had taken a huge risk to make such a guarantee. But it also indirectly proved her confidence in Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. Lainey was also looking at Su Shihan, and what she said was improvised. It wasn't rehearsed beforehand, so Lainey couldn't help but smile. This girl was quite interesting, and she knew how to be grateful. He didn't help her for nothing. The two of them couldn't be considered as close friends, but at this moment, Lainey had no doubt placed Su Shihan in the list of important friends. Not for anything else, but for this trust. The conference had come to a perfect end. It would be impossible if Fatty Lai didn't earn a lot of money from now on. On the other side, Fatty Lai and Kong Xiaobo were overjoyed. From today onwards, Dr. Kong was no match for them. Dr. Kong Medical Group would probably have no way to deal with this, and their products would be seized tomorrow. Let's go back and pack up. We'll go to East Ocean City tomorrow since school is about to start. Lainey said to Ming Yao and Yushu. He didn't know why, but Lainey felt like something was missing from his side. Although Ming Yao and Yushu were Su Shihan's loyal fans, they had already agreed that Su Shihan would go back to the villa to play with Ming Yao and Yushu after the press conference. They didn't have to wait here like other fans just to see Su Shihan. East Ocean House Kong. It was a mess right now. Kang Guifeng and Xiaolong brought the news of the press conference back, and Dr. Kang's blood rushed to his head, and he was sent to the hospital. Kang Mingming smiled bitterly and murmured, It's here, right? It's finally here. Guifeng and Xiaolong didn't have the mood to attack Xiaoming anymore. House Kong was at its most critical moment. What awaited them was being seized. Their products would be taken off the shelves. They wouldn't be able to sell well, and they would have to face lawsuits from consumers and huge compensation. It could be said that House Kong was in a worse state than Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. Chu's villa. Su Shihan secretly came in a black MPV covered in film. Ming Yao and Yushu were very happy. Ever since Xiao Xiao left, Su Shihan didn't come to the villa anymore. Although they would text each other occasionally, Su Shihan was busy every day, and she didn't have much time to chat with them. Sometimes, Su Shihan would reply after a long time, or even a few days. But even so, the two of them had a sense of superiority compared to other fans. Su Shihan would definitely reply to any of their messages. A few days before Su Shihan came to Songshan, Ming Yao had already told Su Shihan not to mention Tang Yan's matter anymore. Although Su Shihan was surprised, she still followed her words. But Su Shihan was very happy when she heard that Xiao Xiao didn't die, and was taken in as a disciple by some big sect. She liked this girl a lot, and felt that the two were fated to meet. They weren't sisters, but they were as close as sisters. On the other hand, she was close to Ming Yao and Yushu, but she didn't feel as close as she did with Xiao Xiao. This was a strange kind of fate between people, and Su Shirhan couldn't explain it clearly. But Su Shirhan's time in the villa was limited. Her schedule was fully arranged by her management company, and this half a day was just a break from her busy schedule. What surprised Su Shirhan was that Lin Yi was still as cold as before. He nodded at her and went back to his room, leaving her, Meng Yao, and Yushu to sing karaoke in the living room. Logically speaking, she helped him a lot, and she took the risk to express her position at the press conference. He should be more friendly to her, right? But thinking about Lin Yi's usual behavior, Su Shirhan knew that this guy was like this. He didn't think of her as a star at all. In his eyes, she was just a slightly prettier girl, and he had never lacked pretty girls around him. At that thought, Su Shirhan was a little dejected. This guy was so annoying. Su Shirhan spent the night at Meng Yao's house, and the next morning, she was picked up by her manager's car. Lin Yi and the others were also on their way to Donghai City. They'd filled out their application forms a while ago, and all three of them chose Donghai Industry University. Meng Yao and Yushu, on the other hand, chose the economics faculty. Meng Yao really wanted to learn some business knowledge so that she could help her father. Or Lin Yushu, on the other hand, didn't have any ideas. She just followed whatever Meng Yao wanted to learn. Lin Yi, on the other hand, signed up for a very unpopular major, the botany major of the biology faculty. This major was related to herbs, and it was one of the unpopular majors. People who really studied plants wouldn't sign up for this major, and those who wanted to study medicine would sign up for a specialized medical university. But in a science and engineering school, there was a reason for this major to exist. When Lin Yi signed up, he had the same interest as himself, and he wanted to spend time with the Miss and Shu. As for whether or not he could learn anything, Lin Yi didn't really care. Chapter 1862. Buying a house. Bingjan had wanted to send them off, but he had just taken over the company, and there were many things he had to deal with. He woke up early every day, and naturally, he didn't want anything to happen to the company that he had worked so hard to get back. Besides, Pengzhan and Faubert had already had dinner with Meng Yao, Shu and Lin Yi, so there was no need to send them off. But before they left, Lin Yi asked Fatty Lai about Xiaoke's orphanage, and he knew that it was doing well. Although there were only dormitories and no other facilities, at least the orphans had a place to live. Lin Yi hinted to Fatty Lai that he could give the orphanage some funding, and Fatty Lai happily agreed. With the current development of Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company, it wasn't possible to completely fund the orphanage in one go, but it was possible to build it in small batches. On the morning of the 8th of October, Lin Yi drove Meng Yao and Yushu to Grandma Sun's house in his jeep. He had already told Grandma Sun a few days ago that he would bring her to Donghai City today, and Grandma Sun had already settled everything. When Lin Yi arrived at her house, Grandma Sun was already waiting in the yard. "Grandma Sun, you don't have any luggage?" Lin Yi looked at the empty-handed Grandma Sun, surprised. "Hee, I'm alone and I don't have much money. It's not good to put these old things in your new house. When the time comes, I'll buy a few new ones." Grandma Sun said with a smile. "I won't let you buy anything when we get there." Lin Yi smiled. "That's good. We'll be on our way then." Meng Yao had already told Pengzhan about Grandma Sun, and although Pengzhan didn't have the time to meet Grandma Sun, he heard from Meng Yao that Grandma Sun was a good person, and that she even took them in when they were in trouble. Naturally, he wouldn't object to Grandma Sun going to Donghai City with them and take care of them. October 10th was the first day of school for the freshmen of Donghai Industry University. It had been a tradition for many years that the freshmen of Donghai Technological University started school in October. This made the students who applied for this university very happy. They could enjoy a longer vacation after the stressful third year of high school. Of course, this rule only applied to the new students. The old students would still start school on September 1st. The four of them drove to East Ocean City on October 8th. They arrived 2 days earlier, so that they could settle down first. Master's acquaintances were here, but Linny didn't want to trouble them, unless it was something important. Linny didn't need to trouble others for something as insignificant as buying a house. Donghai Industry University was located in the university town of Donghai City. There were more than 10 universities in the university town, and they were all very close to each other. Linny drove the group around Donghai Industry University to get a feel of the school's atmosphere. Because of the unified planning a few years ago, all the universities in East Ocean City were relocated together, so the campuses were all newly built. At first glance, it had a modern vibe, and even Grandma's son had a youthful and energetic attitude. In fact, Grandma's son didn't look very old after changing into a new set of clothes. Grandma's son was actually less than 50 years old. It was just that she spent most of her time picking up scraps and being exposed to the sun and wind, so she looked a lot older. Of course, compared to the first high school, the buildings here were still a little inferior. After all, the first high school was a private school for nobles, and the decorations were incomparable to ordinary schools. However, the scale here was far greater than the first high school. Magnificent high-rise buildings could be found everywhere, and the size of the area was also much larger than the first high school. An ordinary small field was as big as the entire field of the first high school. The environment is not bad. Let's buy a house nearby, Linny said. It's close to school, and we won't be late. Okay, you decide, Miss Sun said lightly. Unknowingly, Linny had become the backbone of the family, and the miss wouldn't point her fingers and give her suggestions anymore. Linny parked the car in front of an agency and got off the car with Mingyao and Yushu. Grandma's son stayed in the car and didn't get off. From her point of view, she couldn't give any suggestions, so it was better for her to stay. After entering the agency, Linny realized that the business here was quite good. It was only the morning, and there were already 4 students renting houses here. 2 guys and 2 girls. They looked like 2 couples. One of the couple looked slightly older, and they should be postgraduates. After signing the agreement, they paid the money and left in satisfaction. The other couple was obviously about the same age as Lin Yi and the others, and from the way they talked and acted, they should be this year's new students. The staff of the agency was helping them to find a house. It was a girl with shoulder-length hair and delicate makeup. Her eyebrows were black, and her eyes were big. She was very delicate and lively. As for the boy beside her, he seemed a little shy. From his face, he looked a little immature, as if he was a little younger than the girl, and he seemed to let the girl make the decisions everywhere. He stood at the side, pursed his lips, and did not express any opinions, as if he was a little cowardly. Actually, for new students like you, renting a 1-bedroom apartment is the best. The price is low, and the facilities are complete. Don't think that it's only 20 square meters, but it has a kitchen and a bathroom. This is the most popular apartment for new students, and the rent is very cheap, only 700 to 800 a month. The staff said, 1 room, how are we going to live? Let's just get a 2-bedroom apartment. The girl shook her head and interrupted the staff. Aren't you guys a couple? What's wrong with living together? Haven't you guys? The staff looked at the young couple strangely and stopped halfway. Who said we are a couple? The girl was a little dumbfounded. He is my cousin. Although we are relatives, we are so old. We can't just live in the same room, right? Isn't it inconvenient? Ugh. I see. After the staff was stunned, he shook his head apologetically. He was prejudiced. The men and women who came here to rent houses were basically student couples. It was rare to see a brother and sister combination like this. Linny also realized. No wonder I had that kind of feeling before. It turns out that these 2 people are really brother and sister. Then, There is naturally nothing wrong with the sister taking the lead. At this time, another staff also came up. Chapter 1863. He looked at Lin Yi's group strangely. One boy and two girls? What was the relationship between them? Why was this strange group renting a house today? He didn't dare to make a random recommendation after what happened before. He asked directly, "What kind of house are you looking for?" "We're looking for a house," Lin Yi said. Lin Yi's words attracted the attention of the girl and the boy. The girl looked at Lin Yi with a strange look in her eyes. There was surprise and excitement, but she quickly covered it up. She turned around and continued discussing with the agent. If it was a normal person, they might not have noticed the strange look in the girl's eyes, but Lin Yi's senses were very sharp. Naturally, he didn't notice this little detail. What puzzled him was that he didn't know this girl. What did she mean? Buy a house. The agent was also surprised. Although there were a lot of people who came here to buy houses, most of them were teachers or staff of the school, or parents who accompanied their children to study. Students who bought their own houses were very few. Yes, are there any villas around here? Since Lin Yi was living with Meng Yao and Yushu, the miss liked to avoid suspicion. Naturally, it was better for her to live alone. She didn't want people to find out that she was living with a boy. Villa. The agent was taken aback, but when he saw the Jeep Cherokee parked at the entrance, he thought they must be kids from rich families. Perhaps one of them was the boyfriend's girlfriend, and the other was their sister. Yes, are there any for sale around here? It's best if it's renovated. You can move in right away, Lin Yi said. Yes. The agent sighed at these kids who spent their parents' money. He thought of the huge commission he could get if he sold a villa. The agent acted as if he was on steroids. He opened his laptop and typed in the search criteria. He showed the villas that fit the criteria to Lin Yi's group. They're all here. There are 3 villas for sale around here. There are more in places further away. More than 10 villas are for sale. What about the renovations? Lin Yi asked with a nod. What would Lin Yi think if he found out that the staff was suspecting him of being a child who spent his parents' money? Who knew what he'd think if he knew that this was the money he'd scammed from Zhang Wen? Yes. These 2 are the same. One is simple, and the other is hardcover. They are both from the nearby Shui commercial district. The house type and size are the same, but the price is different. The hardcover is much more expensive, the agent said. Yao sis, we want this one. That building was too luxurious. It doesn't suit us. It's too luxurious. Yushu pointed at the simple villa on the screen. This one's perfect. Pretty much the same as the one we lived in Songshan. All right, Lin Yi, what do you think? Meng Yao nodded as she looked at Lin Yi. Then this one. Lin Yi nodded casually and asked, how much is it? The agent heard Yushu call Meng Yao sis, and he immediately understood. This girl must be the boy's sister, and this Yao sis must be the boy's girlfriend. He was feeling proud of his guess when he heard Lin Yi ask how much it was. He paused for a second. Normally, buyers would only study the price after looking at it carefully. He didn't think that Lin Yi would ask about the price after just a few glances. The quoted price of this villa is 9.5 million renminbi, but the owner said it's negotiable. The agent brought out his bottom line honestly. Lin Yi roughly estimated the price. This was considered cheap in Donghai, but the university was located in a remote area. It was normal for the price to be lower. So Lin Yi made a decision. Call the owner and ask. If it's 9 million, we'll pay today. Okay. The agent froze. He didn't think that Lin Yi would agree so easily. 9.5 million was negotiable, and from the agent's point of view, 9 million wasn't a problem. He actually made such a big deal in one go. As expected, after listening to the price, the owner thought about it for a while and agreed. Since Lin Yi was buying the house with cash and paying in one go, The owner was more than happy to have it easy. Okay, I've made an appointment with the owner. We can go now. The agent nodded and said, Okay, you lead the way, I'll drive. Lenny nodded. When Lin Yi and the others went out, the beautiful girl put down the mouse in her hand and stopped choosing the house. She said to the agent in front of her, I don't want to rent the house anymore. Ah, you don't want to rent it anymore? The agent was slightly stunned. He didn't know how he offended this customer. But he couldn't force her to rent the house if she didn't want to, right? Was it because he said that this pair of siblings were a couple that made them unhappy? And I changed my mind. We'll buy the house too, the beautiful girl said. Buy. The agent widened his eyes and looked at the beautiful girl, who didn't seem to be joking. He finally confirmed that he didn't hear it wrong. He felt very strange in his heart. There were really strange things every day, but there were especially many today. The previous 3 people bought the house, and this pair of siblings also wanted to buy the house. Could it be that all the rich students gathered together? However, looking at this pair of sisters, they were dressed very simply. Although the beautiful girl dressed very youthful, the clothes on her body were definitely not too expensive. As a real estate agent, he could tell at a glance. However, the previous 3 people who bought the house, if they didn't drive here, who would know that they were rich? Because their clothes weren't very luxurious. They were all very ordinary casual clothes, and they could actually afford a villa. Yes, before, near the villa they were looking at, is there another luxuriously decorated villa? Asked the beautiful girl. Yes. The agent nodded subconsciously. I want it, said the beautiful girl. The agent widened his eyes and looked at the beautiful girl in front of him in disbelief. He had an urge to shout. He was crazy. Just now, a girl who wanted to rent a house suddenly wanted to buy a villa. Is this true? Or is she joking? Sir, what's wrong with you? I want to buy a villa. Is there anything wrong? The beautiful girl frowned slightly and asked. No, nothing, that villa 12 million. And it's luxuriously decorated. The agent asked carefully. The school bell's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full text. Chapter 1864. It's a second-hand house. It's not that expensive. The girl said calmly. 11 million. Swipe your card if you can. Card. You're not looking at the house? The agent blinked. I don't need to. This villa is very close to the one they bought before, right? The girl asked. Yes. The agent nodded blankly. Okay, if you can, we'll do the paperwork now. The girl took out a black diamond card. A card that required at least 5 million in savings. The last bit of doubt in the agent's heart disappeared when he saw the card. He sighed. What was going on today? He was just envious of his colleague for selling a villa. And now he was selling another one? Wasn't this too much of a coincidence? Lenny brought Ming Yao to the villa area in Shueshang district. The environment here wasn't as elegant as Songshan's Ocean View Bay, but it was still a high-class district. It wasn't all villas, but the other buildings were all Western style, very unique. Shueshang district, as the name suggested, was a residential district for businessmen near the university. It was a district that was sold to the rich. It was completely different from the residential districts that students lived in. The property fees here were high, but the district was very orderly. There were plenty of parking spaces, and the roads were clean. The villa area was quiet and beautiful. As a result, Meng Yao and Shu fell in love with the environment. Lenny didn't say anything more, and signed the contract with the owner. He swiped his card to pay for the house, and completed the paperwork. Now the villa was Lin Yi's property. In the afternoon, Lin Yi drove Meng Yao and Yushu to the supermarket to buy some daily necessities. The 4 started to clean the place after they returned. It had been a long time since anyone lived in the villa. It was full of dust. They had to do some cleaning, But the villa was too big, and the four didn't stop to clean it for the rest of the day. On the third day, it was the registration day of Donghai Industry University. Early in the morning, Linny drove Mingyao and Yushu to Donghai Industry University. It was a public university, therefore, there were rich and poor students, and it was not uncommon for them to drive to school. Although Lin Yi's Grand Cherokee was worth a lot of money, it was not cheap. But its appearance was very low-key. It was not as eye-catching as Mercedes-Benz, BMW and Ferrari. After parking in the school's public parking lot, the three of them brought their acceptance letters and relevant identification documents to the new student registration counter. In the parking lot, there was no lack of parents of new students. Beside Lin Yi's car, there were a few parents proudly comparing their children's college entrance examination results. Those with high grades naturally had a proud demeanor. However, this was only temporary. University was completely different from high school and middle school. High school and junior high school. It was a competition of results. But in university, although results were important, personal ability also played a big role. Getting a job wasn't just about having good grades. Personal ability and practice were also very important. This was especially true for students who had entered the fourth year of university. After they started looking for a job, they would have a deep understanding of this point. Under the same educational background, recruitment companies wouldn't carefully look at the grades of each subject in each semester. Instead, they would pay more attention to individual performance in the actual interview. Of course, this was too far away for new students who had just entered the university. Those who were able to get into East Ocean Industry University were the pride of their respective schools. The admission requirements here weren't low, and it was something to be proud of to be able to get into this university. Not far away, there was a new student registration counter set up by the student council, guiding the new students to their respective departments. Because Lin Yi, Mingyao, and Yushu were studying different majors, Lin Yi decided to go with them first, and then he would go to the medicine major. However, when Mingyao and Yushu were asking where to register for the economics major, two boys walked up to them and asked in a friendly manner, "Two new students, are you going to the economics major? Let us take you there?" Every year, when it was time for new students to register, there would always be some second and third year boys waiting at the registration counter. After all, the ratio of male to female students in science and engineering was skewed, and there weren't many pretty girls there. As a result, their eyes lit up when they saw Mingyao and Yushu. But these two were from the sports department. One of them was called Li Biaohan, the president of the boxing club, and the other was called Niadeo Zhuang. He wasn't from any club, but his background was mysterious, and he was very strong. Even the presidents of the Wushu and Taekwondo clubs had to give him some respect. Only Li Biaohan could fight him, but it was said that it wasn't because of Li Biaohan's skills, but because his background was similar to Niadeo Zhuang's. Of course, in terms of individual strength, these two were very strong as well. And so, the girls that they had their eyes on first gave up dejectedly. These two had hit on countless girls, but no one dared to say anything. Looking at Li Biaohan and Niadeo in front of her, Mingyao's eyes were filled with caution. "No need, we can find it," Mingyao said. "Haha, this school is really big. It's normal for new students to get lost. Let us take you there." Li Biaohan and Niadeo Zhuang had a tacit understanding. There were two pretty girls here anyway, one for each of them. "I know, you want to hit on us." Yushu looked at the two, and immediately guessed what they were thinking. She called out, "Shield bro, there's someone here who wants to hit on me and Yao Yao." Linny had just gotten the map for the medicine course when he realized that Mingyao and Yushu were stopped by two guys. He frowned as he heard Yushu's voice. He could guess what the two guys were up to when he heard them. Linny had heard about the imbalance between male and female in science and engineering schools. But these two didn't have to be this anxious, did they? Seeing Linny walk over, Yushu said proudly, "We have an escort, we don't need you guys anymore." Li Biaohan and Niadeo frowned. They didn't expect these two girls to be taken. But seeing that there was only one Lin Yi, they didn't want to give up. "Of these two, which one is your girlfriend?" Niadeo asked, unwilling to give up. Although he was a domineering person, he wouldn't do something like stealing someone's girlfriend in public. It was fine if he did it behind their backs, but at least he had to look good on the surface. So if Linny took one, there would still be one left. As for who would get the girl, it would depend on him and Li Biaohan, the school beauty's personal expert. Welcome to log in. Read the full article. Chapter 1865. Lenny looked at the guy and frowned. Since when were there so many masters? As expected of a big city, you can meet golden class masters in any school. Of course, it was his first day at school, and Lenny didn't want any trouble. He looked at the two and didn't say anything. He was about to leave with Mingyao and Yushu. "I say, bro, which one is your girlfriend? You're not thinking of protecting both of them, are you?" Li Biaohan saw that Lenny didn't say anything and stood in front of him. "That's right." Lenny nodded, confirming Li Biaohan's words. "Kid, you're new, don't you know the rules? You want to take two resources by yourself? Hurry up, which one is your girlfriend? I won't make things difficult for you if you take her away." Li Biaohan's eyes flashed with anger. He couldn't do this to normal freshmen, but Mingyao and Yushu were too pretty. They had the potential to become the school's beauties. How could Li Biaohan let them go? They were 100 times better than those ordinary girls. Neither of them. Lenny looked at him indifferently. "I'm a bodyguard." "What?" Li Biaohan froze. "Bodyguard? What did he mean? These two brought bodyguards to school?" Zhuang Niadeo froze as well. He didn't know what to say. This was the first time he encountered such a situation. Lin Yi, on the other hand, had already left with Mingyao and Yushu. Only the two of them were left. This kid must be fooling people. I just saw him take out the admission notice. He must be a newcomer who came here to report. After a while, Li Biaohan finally reacted and found that something was wrong. "It's fine. These two girls will be on the school's beauty list soon. That kid will be easy to find out. We'll teach him a lesson and let him know how strong he is to be a bodyguard." Zhuang Niadeo laughed coldly. However, as the two of them were discussing in the middle of the road, suddenly, he heard the sound of a car horn. Li Biaohan and Zhuang Niadeo froze. In the school, other than the teachers and leaders who dared to honk in front of them, which student dared to do so? However, when he turned around, he discovered that it was a Ferrari convertible sports car. The driver was a bald youth, and beside him was a yellow-haired youth. In the back seat, there was a purple-haired youth. "What are you looking at? Are you courting death? Stand in the middle of the road." The yellow hair looked at Li Biaohan and Zhuang Niadeo and shouted. Li Biaohan and Zhuang Niadeo were unhappy. Although they were usually overbearing, they did not dare to do anything to Lenny on campus. After all, Lenny did not provoke them. If they hit Lenny, it would be a bit unreasonable. However, Li Biaohan and Zhuang Niadeo naturally wouldn't tolerate such open provocation. They were prepared to vent their anger on the three Ferrari-driving freshmen. Although the three newcomers were dressed like hooligans, one of them was bald. Two dyed their hair. But for Li Biaohan and Zhuang Niadeo, it was a piece of cake. Li Biaohan was a master at the peak of the late phase of the Golden Division, and Zhuang Niadeo was a master at the peak of the early phase of the Mystic Division. They could be said to be arrogant. The two of them directly walked over. "Young master, these two seem to be trained as well." The yellow hair looked at the way Li Biaohan and Zhuang Niadeo walked and frowned. "Go down and take care of these two, motherfucker. It's the first day of school, and we already have two idiots blocking our way." Young master Yu was naturally Yu Panhu from the Yu family. He was also a freshman at East Ocean Industry University. Of course, he didn't get in through the official exams. He was a self-funded student. Yes, as soon as the yellow hair got out of the car, he activated his internal energy and revealed the strength of the early phase of the mystic division. Li Biaohan and Zhuang Niedao's faces immediately changed. They didn't think that this yellow hair, who looked like a gangster, was actually a master at the early phase of the mystic division. However, Zhuang Niedao wasn't afraid. He was a physical master at the peak of the early phase of the mystic division. Although the internal style was slightly stronger than the physical style masters of the same level, the yellow hair in front of him was one level lower than him. Plus, he had Li Biaohan's assistant, so his chances of winning were very high. I didn't think that he would be at the early phase of the mystic division. Zhuang Niedao waved his hand faintly. Qi surged around him, and he revealed his physical strength at the peak of the early phase of the mystic division. The yellow hair also froze. He didn't think that accompanying young Master Yu to report his arrival would result in him running into a mystic division master. Pan Huyu's face also changed. He looked at the purple hair behind the car and said, "Go down and find out who he is." It was impossible for a mystic class master to have no background, especially such a young mystic class master. If it was a master in his 40s or 50s, then Pan Huyu wouldn't care. At most, that kind of person would be a guest or a side relative of some family. He wouldn't be a core disciple. But since this person was a university student and had such strength, he was probably a core disciple of some family. The purple hair nodded. When he got out of the car, he activated his internal energy and revealed the strength of the middle phase of the mystic division. This made Zhuang Niedao and Li Biaohan's faces turn extremely serious and ugly. If it was the yellow hair himself, then they still had a chance of winning. But now, there was an additional purple hair in the middle phase of the mystic division. Even two Zhuang Niedao wouldn't be their match. Not to mention that Li Biaohan was only at the peak of the late phase of the golden division. Young master, you wanted me to ask you too, which family are you from? Don't let the flood flood the Dragon King's temple. The purple hair said faintly. If it was any other time, the purple hair and the yellow hair wouldn't mind joining forces to teach these two a lesson. But now the main conflict of House Yu was focused on Lin Yi. Yu 13th was burned to death by Lin Yi. When this news spread back to House Yu, everyone was shocked. Old Yu was both shocked and angered. He wanted revenge, but when he thought of Zhao Guanger's late phase of the Earth class, he didn't dare to touch Lin Yi. And the representative of the common world, House Kong, had suffered such a huge blow. The golden creation was not selling well. Many medicines were seized, and they were facing the danger of bankruptcy at any time. This made House Yu unable to divert their attention to deal with other enemies. So at this time, as a core disciple of House Yu, Yu Panhu naturally didn't want to cause any trouble. Otherwise, with his personality, how could he let these two go? Young Master Yu? Could it be the hidden young Master Yu of the House Yu? Zhuang Niedao paused and thought of a giant among the hidden houses, an existence that was on the same level as the hidden House Yu. Only the hidden Yu family would assign two mystic class masters as bodyguards for their own children, right? That's right, it's the second young master of House Yu, Yu Panhu. The purple hair nodded, and his expression became serious. He didn't have the arrogance from before as he cupped his fists and said, "School Beauty's personal expert, welcome readers to log in. Read the full text." Chapter 1866. Because Purple Hair heard Zhuang Niedao's words, he knew that Zhuang Niedao was someone who knew about hidden families. If it was a normal person, they wouldn't know so much and immediately thought of the hidden Yu family. "I am Zhuang Niedao from the hidden Zhuang family." Zhuang Niedao also cupped his fist. Although he was the eldest son of the hidden Zhuang family, he wasn't favored by the family due to his lack of talent. They didn't even let him participate in the Ice Palace's trial, and sent his two younger brothers, Zhuang Niaoqiang and Zhuang Niapeo. However, his two younger brothers were talented in cultivation and had no interest in managing the Zhuang family's business. Zhuang Niandao was the future family head of the Zhuang family. Therefore, he was currently studying management at Donghai Industry University. Logically speaking, he was the young master of the Zhuang family and the future head of the Zhuang family. In front of Yu Panhu, the second son of the Yu family, he didn't need to address himself as this one. He could even put on some airs. However, Zhuang Niadao had his own thoughts. After he became the head of the Zhuang family, connections would be the most important thing. Although the Zhuang family was a hidden family, they weren't strong. Compared to House Yu and House Yu, they paled in comparison. Plus, the Zhuang family didn't have their own cultivation technique. They practiced both internal and external martial arts, so their overall strength was very weak. However, the Yu family was different. The second young master of the Yu family had 2 mystic-class bodyguards. How prestigious was this? As for forming a good relationship with the first young master of the Yu family, Zhuang Niadao didn't even dare to think about it. Therefore, it was because of these reasons that he addressed himself as this one. Fire Wolfgang Li Biaohan. Li Biaohan also cupped his fists. Although Li Biaohan was only a golden rank master, he was the eyes and ears of the Fire Wolf Gang near East Ocean University City. He could be considered as a small leader. Therefore, with the Fire Wolf Gang's name, he had no intention of pleasing the 2 masters from the Yu family. The Fire Wolf Gang was different from the Zhuang family. They didn't need to please any hidden families. Purple hair and yellow hair's expressions changed. They didn't expect this. They didn't expect that the person in front of them was from the Fire Wolf Gang. Although the Yu family was powerful, they didn't have the strength to fight against the Fire Wolf Gang. Of course, if they used the Heavenly Elixir sect, the Yu family wouldn't be weak. When Right Coiling Tiger heard that one of them was the young master of the hidden Zhuang family, and the other was a member of the Fire Wolf Gang, he couldn't sit still and smiled as he got off the carriage. So it's the Fire Wolf Gang's brother Li, and the hidden Zhuang family's eldest young master Zhuang. Right Coiling Tiger also cupped his fists. He said, "I've long heard of the power of the Fire Wolf Gang. Brother Li is indeed talented." The 3 brothers of the Zhuang family are known as the Zhuang family's saber, gun and cannon. Coiling Tiger has long heard of them. Today, I finally get to see them. Haha, what happened before was all a misunderstanding. We're all brothers. Zhuang Niadao saw Right Coiling Tiger's attitude. He was also very satisfied. It seemed that they would be able to play together in the future. The Fire Wolf Gang, the Yu family, and the Heavenly Elixir sect have business dealings. We are all on the same side. Brother Yu is too polite. Li Biaohan was very happy with Yu Panhu's respect. He cupped his fists and returned the greeting. "Since we've run into each other, I'll treat you to a meal. 2 big brothers, let's find a hotel. We won't stop until we're drunk." Zhuang Niadao wanted to build connections for himself. But wasn't Right Coiling Tiger the same? If he wanted to have more power in House Yu, he needed to have his own power. As the saying goes, when the gods fight, the little devils suffer. So when these guys fought, the other students who knew of Li Biaohan and Zhuang Niadao's fame all stayed far away. Even the freshmen who didn't know about them took a detour under the dissuasion of the older students. So no one heard a word of what these people were saying. From afar, they saw that these guys were about to fight, but they left happily. This made the people watching from afar very puzzled. Lenny brought Mingyao and Yushu to the economics department to complete the procedures. He swiped his card and paid the tuition fees. Then he brought them to the dorm. But at the door, they were stopped by the old lady guarding the door. "Hey, that guy, stop. Don't you see what's written here?" The old lady waved her hand, stopping Lenny from moving forward. Lenny raised his head and saw an obvious sign at the door of the female dorm. It said, "No entry for non-females." Ugh. Lenny didn't notice it before, but he had seen it on Donghai Industry University's forum. The girls' dorm didn't allow boys to enter, so he wasn't surprised. Moreover, there was an allusion to the phrase "non-women are not allowed in." It was said that in the past, the sign was "men are not allowed in." When it was changed to the current sign, it was said that there was a man who wanted to come in, but he told the old lady that he was not a man, but a transvestite. Another theory was that there were girls who kept pets in the dorm, and so the school changed it to no entry for non-females. All creatures other than females were not allowed in, but there were girls who brought their female pets in, wanting to fish in troubled waters. Of course, this was just a rumor. At the time, Linny told Mingyao and Yushu as a joke. I'll walk you guys here then. Call me if you need anything. Linny said to Mingyao. Since they didn't let him in, Linny could sneak in through other channels, but there was no need for that. Okay, bye shield bro. Yushu waved at Linny. Mingyao nodded and pulled Yushu upstairs. After sending the two off, Linny walked to the biology faculty. The biology faculty was the same as the other faculties. There were a lot of tables and chairs in front of the school's main building, with the names of the majors written on them. Some of the majors had a long queue, but some only had a dozen or so people. When Linny found his medicine major, he realized to his dismay that there wasn't a single new student in front of the table. This major couldn't be that unpopular, could it? Linny shook his head helplessly as he looked at the student council receptionist, who looked like he was about to fart. Excuse me, is this the registration area for medicine? Linny asked. Ah, finally there's someone. The guy stood up excitedly when he heard Linny's question. Junior, are you here to register for medicine? Linny was speechless as he looked at the guy in front of him. Why was he so excited when he was here to register? He finally saw a person. Could it be that the people around him weren't people? Or could it be that his eyesight had already reached the legendary stage of Big Eye's leak, and he simply couldn't see things 3 meters away? Tell me, is it true or not? The boy shouted anxiously. Yes or no? Linny's eyes widened. That's right. I am. But Linny hadn't even finished when the notice in his hand was snatched away by the guy in front of him. School Beauty's personal expert. Welcome to log in. Read the full article. Chapter 1867. Of course, if Linny wanted to be on guard, he naturally wouldn't succeed, but Linny didn't have the intention to compete with him at all. As expected, haha, the boy said excitedly. Wahahaha, welcome Junior Linny. Let me introduce myself. My name is Bai Wei Kai, the student council officer of our medicine major, responsible for the liaison between the medicine major and the student council in the department. In fact, I'm just a big butler. If you need anything, just look for me. Thank you very much, senior. Linny heard Bai Wei Kai's name was familiar, as if he had heard it before, but he didn't remember it. No need to thank me. Just call me Brother Xiao Kai from now on. Bai Wei Kai said. Puffed. Linny suddenly laughed. The term Xiao Kai was usually used to describe the second generation of a rich family. He didn't expect this guy to use it. Haha, my family doesn't have much money. Bai Wei Kai heard Linny laugh and knew what he was thinking. What should I do now? Where do I go to pay? Linny asked. Back in the economics faculty, he'd signed up with Mingyao and Yushu, and there were other members of the student council leading them to pay the fees, get their dorm keys, and stuff like that. But there didn't seem to be anything here? Well, wait a little longer. Other majors have a group of 20 people, led by the other student council officers. But there are less than 20 people signing up in our department this year. As for the student council officer, I'm the only one in the entire department, so you can only wait. I'm leaving, and if there are more people signing up, you won't be able to find them. Bai Wei Kai shrugged and said with some regret. If that's the case, then don't we have to wait for all the people in this department to come? Linny asked. Not really. When my younger brother comes, he can take my place for a while. He is also a new student here, but he is familiar with the rules. Bai Wei Kai said. This kid comes to help every year. Right, my grandpa is the only professor in our department. The others are guest professors from other majors in the biology department. Linny was even more shocked after hearing it. It turned out that this whole family was in this profession. However, he still nodded and said, Okay, let's wait for a while. That's right. Why did you choose this department? Could it be that my results are not good enough? That's not right. With your grades, it's enough for you to go to a popular major like computer science. Bai Wei Kai glanced at Lin Yi's transcript and said with some surprise. I like to study medicinal herbs, Lin Yi said. Alright, you win. That's a very good reason. Bai Weikai nodded and said, "However, there's still a problem. You have to be careful of that old man of mine. It's different from the other professors. It's a bit like a master teaching his disciple. If you want to bluff your way through, hee." "What? Is he going to hit people?" Linny asked curiously. "Beat someone up? Hee, that's nothing. I guarantee that there will be someone even more terrifying than you." Bai Weikai shook his head with a bitter smile. "Mix a bunch of herbs together and let you separate them one by one. If you can't separate them, you will fail all the final exams. I guarantee that you will be in heaven and hell when the time comes." Linny was speechless. "Is this difficult? My old man has been asking me to do this since I was a child, right? Moreover, this was only the beginning. After that, he crushed all the herbs and made them into powder for me to distinguish. Later, he directly boiled them into medicine soup to let me taste what was in them. How is it? Are you afraid?" Bai Weikai saw Lin Yi's expression and thought that he was afraid. He said with some pride, "However, my brother and I grew up in this environment. When we were young, we were extremely resentful. But now when we grew up, we liked the smell of this medicinal herb. I'm not afraid. What's there to be afraid of?" Laney shook his head. Don't be so stubborn. Many new students are like this. In the end, Bai Weikai said. "However, if you don't skip classes and abide by the rules, they won't make things difficult for you." "Oh, so I can skip classes if I can distinguish the herbs," Linny said according to his own understanding. "Gosh, in theory that's true. But I don't dare to say that I can find and identify all the herbs without missing a single one." Bai Weikai shook his head and smiled bitterly. However, as soon as he finished speaking, Bai Weikai didn't wait for Linny to reply. He waved his hand behind Linny. "Little Tua, you bastard. Why are you so late? Your brother is bored to death." Linny was slightly stunned. He knew that Bai Weikai's brother was here. When he turned around, he was shocked. No wonder he felt that the name Bai Weikai was so familiar. It turned out that he didn't hear the name Bai Weikai, but his brother's name. Bai Weikai. "Don't mention it. After you left, Grandpa made me a strong man to help him dry the herbs. I did it all morning," Bai Weikai said gloomily. However, as soon as he finished speaking, his eyes fell on Lin Yi and he exclaimed, Hee. Linny smiled and nodded at Bai Weikai. "Big brother, why are you here too?" Bai Weikai was surprised and happy to see Lin Yi. Grandpa had been talking about Lin Yi for a while, but he didn't have the chance to see Lin Yi. Bai Weikai saw Lin Yi here. As Lin Yi was Grandpa's savior, he naturally called Lin Yi Big Brother. "I'm in charge of the new student registration. Why am I not here?" Bai Weikai was stunned and looked at his brother inexplicably. "I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about this big brother." Bai Weikai shook his head and pointed at Lin Yi. "You know each other?" Bai Weikai was even more puzzled. He didn't expect that he misunderstood. His little brother called Lin Yi Big Brother. He is Grandpa's savior. When I was taking the college entrance examination, he saved Grandpa. Bai Weikai said, "Ah, you are Grandpa's savior." Bai Weikai jumped up and walked around the table to the front of Lin Yi. He grabbed Lin Yi's hand. "Brother, I've neglected you before. It turns out that you saved my grandfather. Thank you, really thank you. Haha. No wonder you didn't think much of it just now. With this kindness, my grandfather wouldn't make things difficult for you. You wouldn't have failed the course even if you didn't come to class." Lin Yi was a little speechless. "I mean, I can identify those medicinal herbs. That's easy." "Ugh, that's true." Only then did Bai Weikai remember that Lin Yi didn't know who he was before he met Bai Weitua. If Lin Yi was able to save his ancestor, then he must be someone with great medical skills. Then he might be able to identify the herbs as easily as he said. The School Bell's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full text. Chapter 1868. Excuse me. Is there anyone here? Are you guys here to report in as well? Just when Bai Weikai was about to shed tears of gratitude, A weak female voice came from behind them. It was another familiar voice. Linny paused and turned around. Wang Xinyan. Linny. Xinyan's eyes widened as she realized that fate was just that wonderful. The two of them hadn't crossed paths in life before. But somehow, fate had brought them together again and again. On the train, on the plane, in the exam hall. The two of them had always been sitting in the same seat. Net. In the business district of Songshan, it was Lin Yi who helped her out. She didn't expect to see Lin Yi again at the registration place. This made Wang Xinyan's cold heart ripple. Was this what the ancients called God's will? Was it fate? But it was just a random thought. Wang Xinyan shook these unrealistic thoughts away. She thought about her fate and sighed. Medicine wasn't her choice. She applied for business administration at Donghai Industry University, but House Xiao used their connections to transfer her to medicine. Wang Xinyan knew that this was preparation for her marriage with House Kong in the future. Wang Xinyan knew that this was preparation for her future marriage with House Kong. Net. With the end of the Noble House meeting, the Xiao family and the Kong family kept in contact. The marriage was also put on the agenda. The matter between the Kong family and the hidden house of the right had been arranged by the Xiao family, so the Xiao family knew all about it. Both families had the support of the hidden families behind them, so it was natural that they hit it off well if they wanted to continue working together. Although the Kong family's medical company had suffered a great blow this time, the two brothers of the Xiao family also understood that as long as the hidden Yu family behind the Kong family continued to support them, the Kong family would not fall. Therefore, the marriage was a good thing for the two families. Wang Xinyan was the victim of this incident. She was helpless, but she couldn't change her fate. You're here to report? Lin Yi looked at Xinyan in amazement. It was hard for him to imagine that a girl would choose such a boring major. Yeah. Xinyan nodded, not bothering to explain. She'd always been a quiet girl. And it was only when she was at her weakest that she revealed her heart to Lin Yi. Me too. These two are Bai Weikai and Bai Weitua. Bai Weikai is our senior, and he calls himself Little Kai Bro. Bai Weitua is a new student just like us. Lin Yi introduced. When Bai Weikai saw the beautiful woman, he was originally full of interest. However, when he realized that she and Lin Yi already knew each other, he immediately lost interest. He couldn't take advantage of his friend's wife, and he couldn't have any fantasies about his benefactor's wife. Otherwise, if his grandfather found out, he would definitely skin him alive. Ah, sorry for the trouble, Senior Bai. Xinyan handed the letter over to Bai Weikai. Net. Of course. Bai Weikai quickly helped Xinyan with the procedures. Little Tua, you take my place here. I'll bring my benefactor in this. Student Wang to handle the other procedures. No need, I'll go with Lin Bro. Bai Weitua said. You should stay here and receive the new students. After saying that, Bai Weitua took the lead and walked forward. Bai Weikai was a little helpless. He could only sit back in his seat, a little depressed. It wasn't easy for him to meet someone he could talk to, and it was his grandfather's savior. But his little brother got there first. Lin Bro, Wang classmate, I'm familiar with this school. I grew up here. I'll show you around when I have time. Bai Weitua said. Sure. Lin Yi nodded but was a little confused. If you're from Donghai, why are you taking the exams in Songshan? My hometown is Songshan, my parents work there, and my household registration is there. Naturally, I'm taking the exams there. Bai Weitua explained. So that's how it is. Lin Yi nodded and didn't ask anymore. After all, they weren't familiar with each other yet. He didn't know if Bai Weitua would be willing to tell him if he kept asking. Bai Weitua had already brought Lin Yi and Xinyan to the payment area. And it was only then that Lin Yi realized that all the freshmen paid the fees at the same place. He'd just been here with Meng Yao and Yushu before. Of course, Lin Yi hadn't been to a university before, so he didn't have any experience. He thought that every faculty was different. Of course, some universities were different, but some universities all paid at the same financial office. The place to collect the dorm keys and supplies was the same as well. What surprised Lin Yi was that Bai Weitua was very familiar with the teacher in charge here. He greeted him and said with a smile, Mr. Zhang, help me arrange the dorm room with him. Oh, no problem. Mr. Zhang agreed readily. It was obvious that Bai Weituo and the teacher were very familiar with each other. After taking the keys and supplies, Bai Weituo explained, "We've been helping our grandpa take care of the new students since before my brother entered the university. You know, Lin bro, our major is a super small one, and we obviously don't have enough staff. So we've been acting as receptionists every year, and we're quite familiar with the teachers here." Lenny nodded. No wonder the teacher in charge of the dorm allocation had agreed to it without hesitation. "Do you want me to send you to your room?" Lenny asked as he looked at Xinyan. It's fine, I can do it myself." Xinyan was carrying a big bag of stuff, and it was a little difficult to carry it with her. Lenny took half of the stuff in her hands with a smile. He didn't take all of it, however, since that would make it seem like he had ulterior motives. Lenny had a good impression of Xinyan, but it wasn't to the point where he wanted to fawn over her. Then, "Thank you." Xinyan blushed a little. She didn't know why, but there was always a special feeling whenever she was with Lin Yi. It was a little dull, but it was warm. It was a strange feeling. "Ah, it's nothing." Lin Yi smiled. With Bai Weituo leading the way, the three walked towards the girls' dormitory. Lin Yi had just come back from there, but Bai Weituo assumed that both Lin Yi and Xinyan didn't know about it. He took the initiative to explain where each path led to. There are 4 cafeterias. Number 1 is the staff cafeteria. Number 2 and 3 are the student cafeterias. And number 4. Hehe, it's actually a big restaurant. You can order food there, and all the rich students go there. Bai Weituo explained. That's the gymnasium and the swimming pool. They're open 24/7, but there aren't many people in the middle of the night. If you're lucky, you might see something really exciting. Chapter 1869. Something exciting? There's a ghost in the swimming pool? Lenny paused, thinking of something like a school ghost story. Net. Ahem. Bai Weituo started laughing. How is that possible? I'm talking about a couple having sex in the water. But then Bai Weituo remembered that there was a girl beside him. That wasn't a very nice thing to say. As expected, Xinyan turned away shyly, pretending not to hear what Bai Weituo said. Lenny, on the other hand, was speechless. He didn't know what to say. They all said that couples in university were very open, but they didn't have to go this far, did they? Lenny walked Xinyan all the way to the entrance of the dorm. He didn't wait for the gatekeeper to say anything before stopping. The female dorms were all in this building, so the gatekeeper was still the same one. "Let's stop here, I can't go in," Lenny said as he pointed at the sign in the dorm lobby. "Okay." Xinyan nodded and took the luggage from Lin Yi with a smile. "Thank you. Okay, see you later." Lenny nodded and walked out of the female dorm with Bai Weituo. This place didn't allow boys to come and go, so it wasn't appropriate for them to stay here for long. After Lenny left, Xinyan was stopped by the gatekeeper. Xinyan paused. "Is there something I can help you with? I'm a new student here." "It's okay. I just have something to remind you. The boy who sent you just now sent 2 beautiful girls here. Looking at how intimate they are, one of them seems to be his girlfriend. Don't be fooled by him." The gatekeeper aunt said earnestly. That's right. That's right. Ah." Xinyan blinked. "Over the years, I've been the building manager of this dormitory. I've seen too many girls who have been cheated by their relationships. Sigh. I'm just reminding you that it's up to you to grasp it yourself." The gatekeeper said. "Thank you." Xinyan didn't know what to say. She knew that Lin Yi had a girlfriend, and they'd even had a meal together in Yinjing. But what did that have to do with her? It seemed like the gatekeeper had misunderstood her relationship with Lin Yi. But Xinyan didn't explain. She nodded to the gatekeeper with a smile and went upstairs. The guard lady sighed softly at Xinyan's nonchalant face. She knew that Xinyan wouldn't listen to her. It wasn't that the doorkeeper was a busybody, but every time she saw those girls who were heartbroken, she really couldn't bear to see them lose their souls. She wanted to remind them in advance, but how many of them would really listen? Bai Weituo looked a little excited as he walked out of the girls' dorm. Big bro Lin, that's Wang Xingyan you like, right? Ugh. Why do you ask? Linny paused. Net. It feels like you guys are quite special. Both of you have feelings for each other. I don't think it's over yet. Bai Weitua analyzed. Stop guessing. There's no such thing. Linny shook his head. But he had to admit that there was a hint of tacit understanding between him and Xinyan. There was a trace of special fate. Hee. Bai Weitua smiled mischievously. Linny didn't know what to say. This kid was so mischievous. From what he said, it was obvious that he'd been to the swimming pool to peek. You have a girlfriend? But Bai Weitua's head drooped as soon as Linny asked the question. Nope, don't mention it. Grandpa's too strict. I'm right under his nose, how could I have a girlfriend? But now that I'm in university I'm free. I have to get a pretty girl. I wish you success. Linny didn't know what to say. Haha, it's not even confirmed yet. I saw that there was a pretty girl in our department. But since she's Ling Yi's type, I'll have to give up and look for another target. It's not a bad idea to look at different departments. I heard that there are a lot of girls in the economics department. I'll see if I know anyone. We can have a dorm party. Bai Weitua knew a lot about university life. Linny wanted to say that he had friends in the economics department, but the guy looked like a pervert. He didn't know why, but he didn't want him to see Mingyao and Yushu. What if this guy went after them? But Linny was curious about his own selfishness. Under Bai Weitua's lead, Linny came to the male dormitory. It was a newly built building, and it had a brand new feel to it. How's it? Not bad, right? Big brother Lin, our batch of freshmen has caught up with the good times. This dormitory building is newly built, and the tables, chairs, and beds are all new. The dormitory is also very clean, unlike the dormitories of those fourth-year students, which are in a terrible state. Bai Weitua said. It can't be that bad, can it? Linny said, surprised. That's underestimating these people's ability to pollute. Bai Weitua said. I've seen it a lot here. There are all kinds of birds in a big forest. There was a brother from last year's batch who woke up in the middle of the night and was too lazy to pee in the toilet. So he peed at the wall in front of the door. The other guys in his dorm were all slobs too, and they followed suit. Guess what happened? How was it? Linny asked. After they graduated, the wall behind the door was covered with moss. When they graduated, the janitor who was responsible for cleaning the dormitory thought that their dormitory was a converted toilet. The wooden door was covered with fungus. Bai Weitua said. Air so exaggerated? Linny was puzzled. It could actually grow fungus. Did the people in this dormitory regularly pick them for cooking? Although it's a little exaggerated, it's close. Bai Weitua nodded and said. The two of them went upstairs and arrived at the entrance of room 444. Linny looked at the room number and said, This room number is pretty awesome. Boss, are you superstitious? Bai Weitua asked. If you don't like it, you can change rooms. But the fourth floor is the dormitory room for our medicine department. No matter how you change it, it will start from 44. Unless you share a room with a student from another department. Never mind. I quite like it. Linny took out the room card indifferently and opened the door. The two of them entered the dormitory. There were no other students in the dormitory. Boss, we have the beds on this side. One is by the window, and the other is by the door. Which one do you like? Bai Weitua pointed at the bed on the side and asked. This was a 4-person dormitory. The bed and the desk were one, and the bed was on top of the desk. It was a standard modern university dormitory. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.